I lost my mom at 10. After 8 years with a cold stepmom, I found out she's my birth mom and the man I call dad isn't my real father. Okay, here we go. Imagine I'm telling you this story over coffee, just letting it all spill out. I swear, sometimes I think my life is a sitcom, a really bad one. I mean, losing my mom when I was only 10, that's already a heavy plot point, right? And then throw in the stepmom, who's basically the antagonist in my personal story arc. It's all just too much. Let me give you some background. Mom passed away when I was 10. Cancer, the classic sob story starter. It still hurts, even 8 years later. It's like a hole in my life that nothing can fill. Dad was a mess, obviously. He's a good guy, just not cut out to be a single parent, especially to a grieving kid. Enter Carol, my stepmom. She came into the picture a couple of years after Mom died. She's nice enough, I guess, civil. We can be in the same room without clawing each other's eyes out, which I guess is progress. But close? Absolutely not. We're about as close as two strangers sharing a bus seat. She's just weird. Like she's trying to compete with my mom. It's the strangest thing. It's not like my mom is even here. It's not like she can come back and defend her title of mom. But Carol acts like it's a competition anyway. She gets all snippy when I talk about mom, or when I wear anything that belonged to her. The worst is my necklace. It's an old thing, just a simple silver chain with a little heart pendant. But it was Mom's. She gave it to me right before she passed. It's the only thing I have that feels like a real, tangible connection to her. So, yeah, I wear it basically every day. It's like a little piece of her is always with me. Carol hates it. She'll make little comments, like, "Are you still wearing that old thing?" Or, "Don't you think it's time you got something a little more modern?" It's like she wants me to take it off, to hide it away, to pretend my mom never existed. And that's what gets me. It's not just about the necklace. It's about the whole thing. It's about her trying to erase my mom, to rewrite my history. And I can't stand it. So, a few nights ago, we were out for dinner. It was the whole crew. Dad, Carol, me, and Carol's parents. Her mom is, well, she's a piece of work. Picture the stereotypical overbearing mother-in-law, and you're pretty close. She's always got something to say, some opinion to offer, some way to make me feel like I'm not good enough. Anyway, we were sitting around the table, making small talk, when Carol's mom noticed my necklace. "Oh, that's a pretty necklace," she said, all sugary sweet. "Where did you get it?" I sighed inwardly. "Here we go." "It was my mom's," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "She gave it to me before she passed. I wear it every day." And then Carol just lost it. "Well, technically I'm your mom now," she said, cutting in with this saccharine smile. "I've done more mothering in the last 8 years than she did in 10. I swear, the whole table went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Even Carol's mom looked shocked, and that woman has seen and said it all. My dad just stared at his plate, like he was trying to become invisible. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the years of simmering resentment finally boiling over. Maybe it was the look on Carol's face, that smug, self-satisfied look that just made me want to scream. Maybe it was the fact that she said it in front of her parents, like she was trying to score points with them. Whatever it was, I snapped. I just laughed, this short, sharp, humorless laugh. "If you think being a mom is about trying to erase the actual one," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "then yeah, you've been amazing." Her face. Oh man, I wish I had a picture. It was like she'd been slapped. Her mom gasped, a loud, dramatic gasp that could have shattered glass. My dad just kept staring at his plate, like he was hoping the earth would swallow him whole. He cleared his throat. "That wasn't appropriate. You need to apologize." But I didn't. I said I was tired of her acting like my mom never existed, and I wasn't going to play along anymore. I was finished. The rest of the dinner was a disaster. Nobody said a word. Carol just glared at me, her face a mask of fury. Her parents looked like they wanted to crawl under the table and die. My dad just kept sighing and shaking his head. As soon as we got home, Dad laid into me. He said I was disrespectful, that I had humiliated Carol in front of her family, that I needed to apologize. He said I need to be the bigger person, because she's just trying to connect. Connect? Seriously? To me, that didn't feel like connection. That felt like erasure. It felt like she was trying to replace my mom, to take her place in my life, to pretend she was the only one who ever mattered. I refused to apologize. I said I meant every word. I said I was tired of her trying to rewrite my history. Now my stepmom is barely speaking to me. She gives me the silent treatment which, honestly, is kind of a relief. It's a lot more peaceful around here when she's not talking. But my dad, he's been on my case constantly. He keeps telling me I need to apologize, that I'm hurting Carol's feelings, that I'm making things difficult for him. He acts like I'm the one who started this whole thing, like I'm the one who's being unreasonable. I almost gave in, to be honest. I almost apologized, just to shut him up. But then I thought about my mom, about her memory, about how much it means to me to keep her alive in my heart. And I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't apologize for defending her. But here's the thing, lately, there's been a few things that have been happening that made me question more and more who I was living with. First, there's the little things. My mom's favorite recipes mysteriously disappeared from the recipe box I had stored in the attic. All of them. I'd know my mom's cooking anywhere, and those recipes were all that was left of her cooking, but gone. Then, there are the pictures. I found that a lot of the pictures of mom and dad were no longer on display. If they were, Carol would pop up to replace them. It's like mom never existed in the first place. But that brings me to the biggest problem. My mom's death. It was always a sensitive topic, and I never pressed my dad for details, because he gets sad. But it felt like time to ask a question, so I did. Dad, I said to him, what exactly happened to mom? I want to know the details. I deserve to know. I'm an adult now. I've told you before. She had cancer, and she eventually succumbed to it. It was tragic. End of story. He told me. No, tell me more. I pleaded. When was she diagnosed? What kind of cancer? Did she go to the hospital? My dad suddenly clammed up. He acted very weird. Why do you need to know? It was a long time ago. She got diagnosed a while before you were born, went to the hospital, and got treatment. Before I was born. But mom didn't get sick till I was 10? Did she have it a second time? I pressed on. My dad's face went pale. She didn't get cancer a second time. He told me. But she was sick for years, right? In and out of treatment, right? I asked again. That's when the bombshell dropped. Carol has cancer. Your mom died in a car crash. He told me. My face went white as a ghost. I just blanked out. But if my mom died in a car crash, then there was a huge hole that didn't add up. And it's right when I'm about to confront Carol that something weirder happens. I'm rummaging through one of the cabinets to get some pots and pans when a box falls out. I pick it up and realize that this is my mom's box of belongings. All the mementos and keepsakes that were hidden in here. I open it up and immediately start to tear up. This is one of the last memories I have of my mother. I remember seeing her make this and give it to me. That's when I look down and see something more. There are pictures and letters in there that weren't there before. They were clearly from Carol. I pick them up and read them. And what I read makes me want to vomit. The letters were all addressed to my dad, but they were all about mom. And what they said was absolutely disgusting. Carol had been having an affair with my dad when mom was alive. And she was pregnant. The pictures were of Carol and my dad, laughing and smiling. And in one of them Carol was holding a baby. It couldn't be. Could it? I did the math in my head. Carol came into the picture a couple of years after mom passed away. But if she had a baby when mom was still alive. That's when it hit me. Carol isn't just my stepmom. She's my half-sister. I felt like I was going to pass out. Everything suddenly made sense. The weird vibe, the competition with my mom, the snippy comments, the erasure. It all pointed to one thing. Carol isn't just trying to replace my mom. She's trying to erase her so she can take her place as my dad's number one. But why? What would motivate someone to do something so cruel? That's when I looked down and saw something else in the box. A letter. It was addressed to me. I picked it up and read it. And what I read made my blood run cold. The letter was from my mom. It was written a few weeks before she died. And it revealed a secret that would change everything. My darling, name, the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And there's something I need to tell you before I go. Something that I've been keeping from you for a long time. Your father, he's not your biological father. I blinked. I read the sentence again. And again. It couldn't be true, it just couldn't be. I know this is a lot to take in, the letter continued. But it's the truth. Your father, the man you've known your whole life, isn't your real dad. Your real dad is Carol's father. I gasped. It all made sense now. The weird connection I felt to Carol's parents, the way her mom seemed to favor me over Carol. It was all because they knew the truth. They knew that I was their granddaughter. But why didn't my mom ever tell me? I never told you because I was afraid, the letter explained. I was afraid of what would happen if you found out. I was afraid of losing you. I was afraid of hurting your father. He loves you so much, and I didn't want to take that away from him. But now that I'm gone, I can't keep this secret any longer. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know who you really are. I love you more than anything in the world. And I hope that one day, you'll be able to forgive me for keeping this from you. I burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. My whole life had been a lie. The man I thought was my father wasn't my father at all. And my stepmom was actually my half-sister, and her father was my real dad. It was too much to take in. My head was spinning. My heart was breaking. That's when Carol walked into the room. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I didn't say anything. I just held up the letter. Carol took it and read it. And as she read, her face drained of all color. "How did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was in the box," I said, my voice trembling. "The box with all my mom's stuff. I found it. It all makes sense now. You were jealous. You were pregnant with me. And then there's Mom. What did you do?" I just couldn't contain my anger. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she said, her voice cracking. "What do you mean you didn't mean for any of this to happen?" I screamed. "You had an affair with my dad while my mom was alive. You got pregnant with me. And then you came into my life and tried to erase her. How could you do that? Did you kill my mom?" "It wasn't like that," she protested. I started to walk out. "I'm done, I'm gone." "Wait, don't go. Don't you want to hear my side?" she said and grabbed my arm. I twisted it around and kicked her in the stomach. I pushed her as hard as I could and walked out the door. I have no idea where I'm going, what I'm doing, but I can never go back. I used to be invisible in the family, always compared to my golden sister, even though I was the one carrying everything. I'm not sure this story is real. Maybe it's just a distorted memory, or a version my mind made up to make things easier to accept. Or maybe it's a story that's been told so many times that even I can no longer tell what's true and what's imagined. Either way, this is my story. And I'm going to tell it the way I remember it. Blood is thicker than water? Bullshit. In my experience, blood is just a sticky, messy substance that stains everything it touches. And family. Family is just a group of people who are legally obligated to make you feel like crap. Especially when you're the failure. My name's Nathan, and for as long as I can remember, I've been disappointed. The underachiever. The one who never quite measured up. And my mom? She made damn sure I never forgot it. See, I have a sister, Mary. And Mary was perfect. Golden Child doesn't even begin to cover it. She was the valedictorian, the Ivy League grad, the corporate climber. Everything she touched turned to gold, or at least that's how it appeared. Mom practically worshipped her. Showered her with praise, bragged about her to anyone who would listen, and constantly used her as a yardstick to measure my own worth. And I always came up short. It wasn't like I was a deadbeat or anything. I had a good job in IT. Steady, reliable, paid the bills. I even managed to squirrel away a decent amount of savings. But that wasn't good enough. It wasn't prestigious enough. It wasn't merry enough. And the constant comparisons drove me absolutely insane. Why can't you be more like your sister? Mary would never do that. You should take a page out of Mary's book. I swear, I heard those phrases so many times, I started seeing Mary's face every time I closed my eyes. What really ate at me wasn't just the constant put-downs, it was the blatant hypocrisy. I was the one who was always there, the one who quietly picked up the pieces, the one who actually kept the family afloat. See, Mary's high-flying career might have looked impressive on paper, but it didn't exactly translate into cold, hard cash. She was all about appearances, flaunting her expensive clothes, her fancy car, her swanky condo. But beneath the surface, she was a financial train wreck. And who do you think bailed her out every time? Me. I'd been covering Mom's bills for years. Mortgage payments, unexpected expenses, the never-ending parade of emergencies. I did it out of guilt, out of a misplaced sense of obligation. But did I ever get a thank you? Did I ever get a pat on the back? Hell no. I was just the ATM, the reliable source of funds that could always be counted on. And Mary. She was the star, the one who deserved all the praise, even though she was basically living off my hard work. And then came the day I finally snapped. Mom was at it again, comparing me to Mary, telling me how jealous I was of her success. I'd had enough. Years of resentment, years of feeling invisible, years of being treated like crap finally boiled over. "You're just jealous of your sister. She's the successful one, you'll never be like her," she said, her voice dripping with that condescending tone that always made my blood boil. I laughed, a short, sharp, humorless sound. "Good," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Then she can pay your bills." And just like that, the dam broke. I watched with a perverse sense of satisfaction as my mother's face twisted with anger. But I didn't stop there. I knew I was crossing a line, that I was about to unleash a storm of epic proportions. But I didn't care. I was done. "Why don't you call her right now, Mom?" I said, pushing my chair back from the table. "Ask her to cover the mortgage this month. Since I'm so useless, I guess you won't need my help anymore." My mother's eyes narrowed with suspicion. She knew I was serious. She knew I was about to pull the plug on her comfortable little existence. But her pride wouldn't let her back down. She snatched her phone off the table, her fingers trembling slightly. "Fine," she huffed. "She actually cares about this family, unlike you." She dialed Mary's number, put the phone on speaker, and waited. I could practically feel the tension in the room, thick and heavy. Mary answered on the third ring, her voice all sweetness and light. "Hey Mom, what's up?" "Honey," my mother said, her voice laced with that cloying, manipulative tone she used to get her way. "Nathan has decided he's done helping. I need help covering the mortgage this month." There was a brief pause, a moment of stunned silence. Then, Mary's voice changed. It lost that sugary sweetness, replaced by a sharp, clipped tone that I knew all too well. "Mom, I already told you," she said, her voice laced with thinly veiled irritation. "I can't right now. I just put a down payment on the new condo. You know how it is?" "But honey," my mother pleaded, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't know what to do. The mortgage is due, and "Mom, I can't," Mary said, her voice firm, bordering on dismissive. "I just don't have the money. You'll figure it out." And that was it. Just like that, the golden child had crumbled. The facade of perfection had shattered, revealing the hollow shell beneath. My mother's face was a study in disbelief. She stared at the phone, her mouth agape, like she couldn't comprehend what she was hearing. The realization that her precious Mary couldn't, or wouldn't help her was a blow she hadn't seen coming. I decided to twist the knife a little further. "Wait a minute," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought Mary was the successful one. Shouldn't this be easy for you? What happened to all that big corporate money?" Mary's sharp intake of breath was almost audible over the speakerphone. "That's none of your business, Nathan," she snapped, all pretense of civility gone. "Oh, I think it is," I retorted. "Especially since I'm the one who's been bailing you both out for years." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel my mother's eyes boring into me, a mixture of anger and dawning horror on her face. "You don't understand," Mary finally said, her voice tight and strained. "My expenses are insane. The condo, the car payments, the credit cards, it all adds up. So, the lavish life ain't so lavish after all, huh?" I said, leaning back in my chair and relishing the moment. The rest of the conversation was a blur. More excuses from Mary, more pleading from my mother, and more snide remarks from me. Finally, Mary hung up, leaving my mother staring at her phone in stunned silence. "Well," I said, standing up and grabbing my jacket, "looks like you bet on the wrong horse, Mom." I turned to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You can't just walk away from this, Nathan," she said, her voice shaking. I need your help." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something genuine in her eyes. Not love, not affection, but fear. "I thought Mary was handling it," I said, my voice cold and indifferent. "She will," she whispered. "She just needs time." It was the same empty promise she'd been making me for years. I raised an eyebrow. "And in the meantime, what happens to you?" Her hand tightened on my arm, her knuckles white. "You're my son, Nathan," she said, her voice pleading. "You can't let me lose everything." It was then I saw all the years of manipulation, all the years she forced me to follow her strings. It wasn't going to work. I pried her fingers off my arm. "You made your choice, Mom," I said, my voice as hard as stone. "Now you get to live with it." And with that, I walked out the door. I didn't look back. As I drove away, I felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Relief, anger, sadness, and something else. Something dark and unfamiliar. Was I enjoying this a little too much? Over the next few weeks, I did my best to ignore the chaos that was unfolding back home. My mother bombarded me with calls and texts, ranging from desperate pleas to angry accusations. Mary went radio silent, probably too busy trying to keep her own life from imploding to worry about her mom. But I didn't waver. I knew I was doing the right thing. I had spent too long sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of a family that didn't appreciate me. It was time to put myself first. And then came the call that changed everything. It was Alexis, a family friend. She is one of the few friends my mom kept up with. "Nathan," she said, her voice grave. "I think you need to know what's happening with your mother." I sighed. "What now? Did she finally get evicted?" "It's worse than that, Nathan," Alexis said. "She's desperate. She's been calling everyone, begging for money. She's even been trying to sell off some of the family heirlooms." The news hit me harder than I expected. This was spiraling further than I wanted. So Alexis continued and then said, "Mary, that's another story." "Alexis, please just get to the point," I replied, my voice tight with growing anxiety. "I heard from a little birdie that Mary has loan sharks on her tail. Word of advice? Don't go near the action. You don't want to get involved. Goodbye." The phone call then hung up. The news stopped me in my tracks. I started piecing together all the things Alexis and Mom have been saying over the years. The fact that Mary was so tight on money, and how much she flaunted being high class. I decided to leave things as is. I was going to hide. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself it wasn't my problem. But I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. I kept thinking about my mother, alone and desperate, and Mary who had done things that were wrong. She has put herself in great danger. My heart grew heavier, and there was nothing I could do. I decided to protect myself. I started diverting large sums of money into offshore accounts, making sure that no one, especially Mary, would be able to find them. Since they were out to use me as an ATM, I wasn't going to be used. That way, I was free to do whatever I wanted. The guilt at the selfishness barely pricked my conscience. It was survival. A week later, I received a call from Alexis, again concerned. I picked it up immediately this time. "Nathan, I hate to be the one to call, but it's important." My stomach dropped. "Please tell me Mom isn't going to do something stupid," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It's about Mary. No one can get a hold of her. She missed dinner with her co-workers who called to check on her since she hasn't been seen at work in the past week." I paused. In the past week, I've seen no calls or texts. It's odd, I thought, but at the same time, it wasn't. I was one of the few people Mom and Mary contacted. What did I know? "Is this about loan sharks?" I responded, dread creeping into my voice. "I don't know, but this seems to spell disaster," Alexis stated, her voice shaking. "All right, I'll head to her condo and check things out," I replied, hesitant to get involved. Each step closer felt like stepping into quicksand, knowing it could drag me under too. Part of me screamed at me to stay away, that I had done enough. But the other part, the part that still clung to some twisted sense of family, wouldn't let me turn away. As I drove to Mary's condo, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The sky had turned gray, and the wind was picking up, as if foreshadowing what was to come. I thought about turning around, to stay away, but I was so close, and part of me needed to know what had happened. The guilt weighed heavily on me. I pulled into the parking lot of Mary's condo, and walked up to the door. As I went to knock on the door, it swung open, revealing a scene that would forever be etched in my nightmares. The air was thick with a strong, metallic scent. The living room furniture had been flipped and shattered. Broken pieces of porcelain were spread across the floor. I followed the red stains across the room and toward the bedroom. As I got to the door, I peeked in and immediately ran to a trash can to puke. What I saw is something I will never forget. Mary was spread across the bed with slashes all across her chest. Her condo had been completely ransacked and robbed. I was the first to the scene. She lay like a discarded doll, her perfect image shattered, her life brutally extinguished. I bolted out of the condo, gasping for air. I stumbled to a nearby trash can and emptied my stomach, the bile burning my throat. When I could finally stand, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the device. The authorities swarmed the scene. The police, the paramedics, the crime scene investigators, a cacophony of sirens and flashing lights that only amplified the horror of what I had just witnessed. I was questioned for hours, grilled about my relationship with Mary, my knowledge of her debts, her associations. It became clear that I was one of the last people Mary had contacted. The detectives saw me as a suspect. Finally, Exhausted and traumatized, I was released. They warned me not to leave town, that I was still a person of interest. I didn't care. I just wanted to go home, to scrub the images from my mind, to forget everything that had happened. But I knew that was impossible. I was forever tainted. As I headed back to my car, a chilling realization began to creep into my mind. This wasn't just about the money. It was about something more. Something darker. Something that reached back into our twisted family history, our poisonous dynamic. Had my refusal to help set this chain of events in motion? Was I responsible for Mary's death? It was 3 a.m. when I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, but the same sense of dread that had plagued me all day compelled me to pick up. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost robotic. It sent shivers down my spine. Thank you for doing what you did. You have set your mom free. I hope you live a long life. Then the call immediately ended. My blood ran cold. Those words? They sounded like a threat. A promise. A confession. I checked my bank account and saw that all of my savings and wealth had been transferred to an offshore account. An account of my own. What is going on? What have I done? The dread was creeping in. Was I next? I received a call in the morning to attend Mary's funeral, and I attended with a heavy heart. The call happened to be from Mom. I picked my mom up, and she's a husk of what she once was. There was no emotion. No feeling. We sat in the pews without expression. The words and prayers of the speakers did nothing to ease the atmosphere. I was getting stares and glares from all members of the family. I wasn't the golden child, and never will be. We drove home in silence, and it was a silence that I was going to have to carry with me for the rest of my life. As the days turned into weeks, I felt so empty. Although my life was financially stable and free from my family, I have no one to turn to. I have blood on my hands, whether direct or not. I receive a call from the police, and they say that they are closing the case for Mary, as they suspect it to be someone out of state. They give me their condolences and then hang up. I can never tell Mom about that. She's too fragile, and it may kill her. A year has passed, I received a call, and it's from an unknown number. I picked up, and I heard my mom tell me these words. You're free. Finally, both of us are free. It was the only choice for me to take. Please don't find me. I tried to respond with the words, what do you mean? But the call immediately ended. I tried calling again, but the line went dead. It was then I realized that those are the words of someone who was on the brink. Of someone who had nothing left. The finality of these words was all but telling. I contacted Alexis about my mom and we searched all day and all night looking for her. We posted photos. We called the authorities. And nothing. 3 days later, I received a call from the local police. A body has been found in the reservoir. I had to go to identify the body, and it was my mother. She was gone. She had weighed herself and jumped in the reservoir. I'm left with nothing. I didn't want this. I wanted to be free of them, but not for them to perish. I wanted to escape, not destroy. I sold everything and decided to move. I leave this place behind with the horrifying memories that have occurred. The offshore account? I left it untouched. It was tainted money, blood money, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I gave the details to Alexis. She could donate it, burn it, do whatever she wanted with it. I just wanted it gone. I walked out of the wedding after being humiliated by the groom's best friend with a cruel prank in front of all the guests. Hey, Redditors! This is a furious venting session, a scream for help. But don't worry, I'm feeling better now. It's just the feminine wrath right now. I'll get right to the point and provide an unbiased perspective. So I left my groom at the altar 8 months ago. Yeah, I understand how that sounds. But, before you pass judgment, please hear me out. The person who ends a relationship is typically regarded to be callous, because how can they be upset when they instigated it, right? But this is not true. People in my circumstance will know what I'm talking about. While everyone sympathizes with the individual who is dumped, no one appears to care about the person who musters up the fortitude to stop the relationship. I'm not condoning toxic people who harm their spouses, but some people simply make you unhappy till it becomes your reality. It can take numerous forms. Some males exhibit emotional distance. Some people are always too busy with everything but their partners. Some people lack the courage to stand up for their spouses. Some people mistreat their relationships and dismiss them as mere jokes. Some undermine, gaslight, and deflate their confidence if they do anything slightly excellent to shine or achieve success. My boyfriend possessed all of these beautiful characteristics. Yes, that is a sigh. Let's not even get started on dissecting the character of his excellent best friend, who possessed all of these attributes to an even greater extent. For a long time, these two men made my life terrible, and I assumed that this was how one should live. The tranquility that I now have in my life, after kicking them out, is out of this world. However, they have returned and are wreaking havoc. Because who else yells chaos besides them? So, to help you comprehend this, I'll take you back to my college days. Yes, I admit it, I was stupid enough to date this man for 4 years. But honestly, I was the stupidest person to accept his proposal and chose to marry him. My ex and his best friend have been close since kindergarten and are quite similar. The same sexist, misogynistic, insecure and overconfident characteristics. It wasn't always this horrible. I had good days with my ex. Initially, he was rather charming. And believe me when I tell you, that man knew how to be charming. He tried to impress me and it worked. The first few months went pretty well. After that, the layers began to peel off, revealing his true self. It began with him being constantly unavailable and busy, while partying with his friends. This was what sparked the problems. And then he gaslighted me, convincing me that I was insane and delusional for questioning why he wouldn't give me his time. This lasted for quite some time. When college ended and I was seeking work, he'd laugh in my face in front of our pals and encourage others to join in. His approach went something like this. You'd never get hired, LOL. Even if you do, you'll be fired. This came from my man. And his best friend, who seemed to relish this, would always say, thank God you're pretty. They hired you as eye candy, lol. It felt disrespectful and irritating. And my ex would only chuckle. Every time I argued with my ex, he told all of his buddies about it. He would incorporate a third party in our discussions. And his closest buddy would call me all kinds of names and characterize me as a dramatic and impulsive woman. The stereotypical woman who overreacts to everything and obsesses over little matters. They'd make fun of me everywhere, and it was hurtful. He'd make comments about my beauty, my sense of style, and so on, while my ex would just sit there and chuckle. Now, if I start talking about these things, I'll be able to provide innumerable examples. But that is not what we are here for. As the wedding planning began, it was literally his closest buddy who made all of the decisions. I was the bride. I was going to have my dream wedding. But, no matter what I wanted, we'd only go with what his pal chose. At times, I felt as if he was deliberately choosing something I didn't like just to spite me. For example, I dislike orange flavor, but he chose it for my wedding cake. My ex chose the same option as his pal and forced me to follow suit. Even my wedding gown wasn't my choice. This man, my ex's best friend, was a perfectionist. My fantasy dress was allegedly too garish for his tastes. Everything went on, and I persevered till I couldn't. On my wedding day, something terrible occurred. But now as I look back, I'm grateful it happened. So my ex's best friend wanted to have fun by planning a prank that was quite rude. And that is not all. He also used some harsh words. I will explain. A pregnant woman was carried inside. And it was proclaimed, by none other than my groom's best man, his best friend, that he should not marry this stupid ugly hag. Referring to me, he already had a wonderful girlfriend, who was pregnant with his child. And this wasn't happening in a room with just the four of us. This was happening in front of all of the wedding guests. I was horrified. I wasn't sure how to react. As my tears watered, he began laughing and looked at my groom, asking if he really wanted to live with this dramatic stupidity for the rest of his life. He was being so cruel to me for no reason, and I was simply standing there, unable to speak or cry. This carried on for around 30 minutes. And I was on edge when the girl and the two men began giggling. I've never felt weaker in my life. I felt like my heart was shattering and I was about to die, all while these folks laughed in my face. Then they explained that it was a joke. A prank. Can you imagine how that feels? After humiliating me in front of all the guests and using such language against me, they simply laughed it off, dismissing it as a joke. When I started ranting at them, they just yelled back, saying I was foolish for not knowing how to react to a joke. That was enough to make me realize that I did not want to cope with this for the rest of my life. And so I departed. I simply abandoned my groom at the altar and walked away. They attempted to remedy it, but I left and went missing for around 2 weeks. I needed time to recover from this intense mental anguish. I won't go into great detail about how I healed, but it wasn't an easy process. It was a rough trip, from going to therapy, weeping myself to sleep, or being unable to sleep, and eventually being hospitalized for dehydration and poor eating habits, because I was starving myself. But I healed. Not entirely. Even so, thinking about it all made my eyes water. But I was also working on rectifying it. That's what had to be fixed. Not my shallow relationship, which this nasty man is currently attempting to heal. As I already stated, it has been 8 months. And my ex's best friend is taking his role as a best man a little too seriously, after spoiling my wedding himself. Call after call. Text following text. From coming to my house to showing up at work, he has done everything he can to make me want to go back to my ex. He believes that this is simply a problem that should be fixed. When I plainly stated that I had ended the relationship and had moved on, he merely asked whether I was dating anybody new. If I had another man in my life, he would most likely leave me alone. However, as a woman, my decision to be single while not in love with my ex was not acceptable to them. It was an issue that needed to be resolved. A dumb prank that escalated and now needs to be solved. I'm so done with this, it is mentally taxing. Because every time this man tries to talk about the past, it brings back unpleasant recollections. Give me some guidance, gentlemen. Update 1, thank you so much for your kind compliments. When I thought about writing this, it was more of a venting session. I did not anticipate people to be so involved. Reading your comments made me feel like a movie character, and you're all developing your own theories. So I saw a couple comments discussing a restraining order, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm not sure why I didn't think of that myself, but it's never too late. Speaking about my current circumstances, things are getting pretty annoying, because he has started calling my pals after I blocked his phone number. This is quite frustrating. I'm simply attempting to live my life in the greatest way possible. And he is doing everything he can to avoid it. I'll obtain that restraining order, you know. Update 2. Guys, I received the restraining order. And guess what? I received a text from my ex's best friend's girlfriend, who claimed that her partner was simply being nice, but my move made her believe that I was not worth it because it was such a dramatic thing. Like, dude, is their entire tribe going to annoy me now? I'm really frustrated. Literally. There's so much. It's all the same old drama, and I'm over it. Update 3. Hello there, hopefully this will be my final post. I'm not sure if this was the appropriate thing to do. I contacted my ex. And we had a lengthy chat. I made it obvious that I was no longer interested in him and would never contact him again. Although I refer to it as a discussion, it was primarily me speaking and him agreeing with my sentences. I told him that if his friend didn't stop, I'd have to take severe legal action, as if the restraining order wasn't enough. He told me that I would not be harassed again, and that he would speak with his friend. It's been a week and I haven't heard from him or his best friend. I really hope it stays like way because I am so over these people, and I don't trust them at all. Venting over here has been helpful, and you all are nice people. Thanks. I'm going to sign off for now. NTA, but for your ex and his closest friend. Definitely a holes. Reading this made me really irritated with them. I cannot comprehend how you put up with such behavior. I found out my wife was cheating with my friend after she secretly went out despite my warning. She admitted to multiple affairs. I'm 30 male and my wife is 25 female. We've been married 3 years and together roughly 6. Never had kids. No assets whatsoever. Debt exceeds checking account balance. I earn about $4,000 a month and we rent a house. She earns roughly $1,500. I work hard to give my daughter the life she deserves, and now I face the unthinkable. My workplace family is close. A almost 3-year coworker urged me to join a recreational soccer league, which I've played in for 2 years. I thought my wife supporting me by attending every soccer game was nice. I suspected she went for the alcohol though. I drank lightly most game nights. While watching the games, she'd get loose and ride home with me. After the games, some males and girls would linger out at different venues late at night. We occasionally returned to my house or went to a pub, pizza joint, etc. A couple of weeks ago, a group of them were going to a guy's house a city away from me. After the game, I apologized and said we wouldn't go. I worked early the next morning. On the way home, she texted a friend to drive her there. She asked if she could go while I drove home. No, I said. Work in the morning, but I want to be with you tonight. She silently punished me with anger and alcohol. As I entered the driveway, a car pulled up in front of the house. It was my pal. Her executive choice to attend this party enraged me. I told my friend to exit from his automobile. My wife left my car and entered his. Driving away. The dead iPad I got her years before was plugged in my wrath. Though old, I knew it was linked to her messaging/social media accounts. I noticed where she was and tried to stand. That night, I fell asleep at 3 a.m. She was still away. Morning came, and she was in our bed. I had no idea when she returned. I woke up, got ready for work, and went without waking her or kissing her goodbye for the first and last time. I wanted her to know I was mad. I put the iPad in my briefcase before work. I worked that day. After a meeting and a few conversations, I pulled out the iPad and saw a message app notification. Buddy is typing. An awful exchange of self-destructing messages appeared in the app. I saw their communication in real time, thus this app must have been obsolete. The night prior, they recanted. Buddy was talking about them making love and other guys having fun last night. Very nearly lost it. After that, things became worse. I watched my wife tell Buddy to send her a video of him enjoying himself. He obliged, and I unfortunately witnessed it. I raced from my office to the restroom and vomited profusely. Was shaking after seeing what? I was excused from work today. After several hours to relax, I was scared I would damage someone or myself. She was still asleep on the bed when I got home. I set my stuff down and invited her downstairs. I sat across from her and asked her to describe yesterday night in full. She did, without sexual situations. Drinking, pool, and conversing. The end. I asked her when she last spoke to Buddy. She stated she messaged him that morning, but nothing in particular. I dropped the bomb. Would your story change if you knew I watched your entire morning conversation with him? Her tears fell. Her first words were, "You leaving me?" She confessed. Though she couldn't remember, she said she had sex with Buddy and another teammate last night. And that was all she remembered. Perhaps there were more guys involved, but she wasn't sure. I hated it. Was this her first time? She surprised me by saying there had been others. One was in my house while I slept upstairs. The end. Everything was numb to me. We packed her bag and she went to visit family. She begged me not to tell. My horrible story was mine alone. 2 weeks till D-Day, I have no idea what to do. I hope I don't have the worst D-Day experience, but it's hard to imagine anything worse than catching your wife in a gangbang with males you've accepted into your lives and discovering they've been together for months. She now attributes everything to drink. She vows to start AA. Encourages couples therapy. She wants a united outcome. Perhaps too late. But I'm a chump and experience all the post-infidelity emotions, including guilt. Not sure why. I have a lawyer appointment tomorrow. I hope my decision is right. However devastated she is from being an alcoholic, no matter her sincere desire to resolve this, I imagine her as douche sandwich lunch meat whenever we converse. Can't trust her. Her persistent deeds offend me. I deserve much better. Why do I feel bad when I'm not perfect? No reconciliation, right? I am not the villain, am I? Any advice or help is much appreciated. Writing this and seeing it so clearly makes me feel stupid. However, it's difficult to quit caring about the person who shocked you. Please be patient with me. Update 1. Your advice, concern, and positivity are much appreciated. I've had several kind individuals ask how I'm doing since I posted about my experience almost a month ago. Unfortunately, this scenario has escalated from awful to egregious. My words don't do it justice. I apologize for the long update post, but it's the only way to show how devastated I am. I followed your suggestion and scheduled many attorney and legal document preparation sessions days following the initial post to keep my options open. FYI, my wife was unaware of the meetings. A few days passed without interaction after the post. But she insisted that this time she would try to get us in to see a marriage therapist, something I had been pressing on for months before my D-Day, to see if we could work through this. My heart knew what I would choose. She got us on a therapist's schedule, but it would take a week and a half. I stalked her every move on that filthy iPad. I was fixated. Watching every communication pass. I checked Facebook, Snapchat, and everything else. I had no further evidence after a week and a half of monitoring her online activity. I hoped she was expressing genuine regret. When we saw the therapist, he sat us down and asked why. I instructed her to recount the tale in her own terms. She left certain information out, but much was on the table. After listening, the therapist asked, "How does that affect your trust in her? You feel how about your marriage?" Shaking my head in surprise and shock. Instead of answering, I said, "I fear I will never say it out loud if I don't now. I can't recover. This marriage is over. Broken vows. My faith is broken. I believe the only option is to divorce." My stomach sank, and she cried hysterically. I added, "I don't know what can be salvaged from this relationship, but the marriage is over. I meant what I said on the altar, and I'm not being true to myself if I don't recognize this as being broken, unfixable." That gave me a little relief. Declaring my resignation to her in a neutral party. He calmed her and explained why my sentiments and decision were rational given the situation throughout the rest of the therapist visit. This could not have gone better, in my opinion. He wanted to see us individually first to see whether he could help us. We may meet to discuss reconciliation years from now. Let me tell you now so you don't wonder, I don't even want to discuss reconciliation anymore. However, individual therapy may help me in the meanwhile. Before continuing, I knew I was about to embark on a legal road that, if not amiable, might be disgustingly unpleasant and financially catastrophic for me, the earner in a no-fault state. I wrote out this legal process, but I won't post it until it's finalized. No longer safe to share online. My main point is, I must be polite now. Fast forward about a week and a half. Both of us have had individual treatment. She told her family that we're leaving the marriage due of broken vows, but we're both healing. I've kept scanning her social media for signs that she's continuing her filthy practices while she's around family. Many of you said she would. Not your fault, I would have searched anyhow. Last Thursday night, I discovered I hadn't checked a place. Ever. The App Store. I checked her iCloud app download history and found that she had downloaded a hidden texting app approximately 2 weeks earlier to that evening. My stomach ached. In one terrible swoop, I knew she had tried to hide communication from me the whole time. All while knowing I had her iPad, which she requested I maintain to regain my trust. I still think she didn't aware that any iCloud-connected device can access an app's download history. I needed to understand app communications. Thinking about those moments, I lost control of my body. I put the app on her iPad. Tried some of her most common logins. Voila, the truth. After our first therapy meeting, she not only messaged Buddy on this app, nevertheless they kept having sex when she knew I'd be away. Throwing up. I wept. Weeknight 3 a.m. I grabbed every prescription strength drug in the bathroom. I returned to my room with a full fistful of drugs that would have killed me. Sitting on my bed, I cried, ready to end it. I tried calling my mom on my phone. No reply. My dad. No reply. My sister. She replied. I told her what I found through violent tears, and she could tell I was losing it. Even in the middle of the night, she kept me on the phone until I calmed down, even though she didn't know I had the tablets. About 1 hour. But I felt numb again. I returned to the restroom and refilled a container with tablets after hanging up the phone, washing hands. Go back to bed to catch a few hours of sleep. We never got that. After several hours, I realized I needed to work. I couldn't stand that house or that time. I put the iPad and pill bottle in my briefcase as I got dressed. I immediately gave my most trusted coworker both upon arriving at my office. I urged him to keep them in his desk and never give them back. No queries. As I left, he patted my shoulder in understanding. So I did it. I got my wish. What I sought. Undisputed proof that my wife cheats and lies. I spent days deciding what to do with my newfound knowledge. I desperately wanted to call her out to every family member, friend, and acquaintance, declare her true self to the world. What she did? And still did. But I couldn't. I had started divorce proceedings. There's still time for her to get nasty and expensive. As days passed and additional texts, calls, and attempts to contact me remained unanswered, she eventually made an effort to visit me. About lost my crap during the encounter. I deliberately remained ambiguous and indifferent to her. I was unsure what to do. I gave her a chance and asked her directly when she lost her temper and started ranting at me for acting weird. Have you spoken to Buddy since that night? Her reply. No, I blocked him everywhere. I asked again. Are you sure? She insisted she hadn't. He was filthy. That she would never hurt me. That she could never hurt me. I dropped the bomb. What about this app? What about my phone footage of that app showing your two talks all along? You sent each other pictures? Based on my daily itinerary, your plans to slip around? She fell to the ground, crying and pleading for what? My tone was neutral. I won't tell anyone about this. You won't argue with me about divorce matters in exchange. Despite not having to, I'll be fair. The divorce papers will be served to you. Do nothing with them. Otherwise, people will have to know why I'm being so unreasonable. Your pick. She departed. 2 days later, she was served. I haven't told anyone outside my immediate family since that day. However, Find My iPhone proves she has visited him every night since then. At home with his mother. Her family thinks she attends AA every night. But my screenshots of her location during those meetings reveal otherwise. Why hasn't she changed her iCloud password? Why I keep gathering proof is beyond me, but I do. Waiting for this legal period is worrying me. One where she could challenge me in court, while fully aware, her family believes she's doing well. So far from the truth. In fact, she lies to all of them. Unfairness pains me most right now. She can pretend everything is fine around her family. Each night, she flees for sex with him. Then sneaks home at night to maintain appearances. I work every day. An empty, haunted house awaits you. Experience true solitude in every way. I no longer consider self-harm. However, these are dark days. I take things hourly. Day by day. Until I know I survive this torture. My finances intact, leaving her behind. As for my next steps, I'm unsure. I'm just surviving until then. Thanks for reading, caring, giving guidance, knowledge and courage. You were my only vent when I felt absolutely isolated. I may know nothing about you. I trust you more than my wife. Undoubtedly. Thank you. Second update. This is my third and hopefully last post. I survived my darkest days because to the great support and counsel I received here. I hesitated to comment because my divorce is finally final. No more hiding. After the unreasonably long 6-month and 1-day cooling off period to see whether my ex-wife might lawyer up without me knowing, it's done. After going entirely silent, I feel like I can finally move forward in my life. As ridiculous and ugly as my 2 initial posts after D-Day were, many people followed them, and I should have realized the rest of the cooling off period would be just as terrible. I wanted to update you on what's happened since my last post. My last post was 6 weeks after D-Day. I didn't indicate in that post that I had filed my divorce papers with the county. Many wonderful Redditors advised me to give her the iPad and cut any ties to gadgets, shared logins, and accounts that would allow me to obsess over what, where, who she was doing. I knew enough. Out was my goal. My approach to divorce may have caused emotional harm in the long term. It had less long-term influence on my wallet. Despite its painful slowness, it all made sense in real time. After accepting that I could never trust her again, I needed to get rid of her. I wasn't going to give her $2,000 in spousal support month to month for half the marriage. We had no kids together. But my state allows no-fault divorce, and I was the breadwinner. No way. No way. I'm not compensating her for her harm. I got mad. Thought about it, and planned to leave this marriage and her quickly and completely. Looking back, I regret my divorce negotiating techniques. It worked out. Though I think my morality may have suffered. A matter of opinion. From my perspective on fault and accountability, she caused me mistrust, grief, and anguish that dwarfed my acts. I submitted the divorce paperwork to the county around my last post, but I was still waiting for their confirmation. I hid this from my wife, who lived with her family. She was never allowed back in my home after I made her leave. I scheduled several meetings for us to chat. I wanted to convince her I still wanted to save the relationship. Complete falsehood. But in all our conversations, I made it clear that I thought our marriage was finished. Breach of vows. If we wanted to start over, we must start over. This marriage must terminate mutually. We can then court each other again and build a better relationship. This is making me gag typing it. I can't believe she bought it. I would make it as easy and pleasant as possible for her, accelerate the process, and keep it out of the public eye, just to get through this phase so we could focus on the next together. My service of her was an example. A mutual acquaintance played third wheel in a handoff, signature exchange, and chat at my place, where we lived together. She signed necessary documents. She sealed her paperwork in their envelopes without scanning them. I doubt she ever delved into the legal procedures, as I portrayed a perfect scenario without spousal support. The biggest issue I wanted to avoid was giving her spousal support, beyond dividing what was in our account. I played the need time on my own to think card for the first several months. Hard to avoid seeing her, although we met twice a month for dinner or public events. I made small talk and pretended to care. She could never say I tried to hurt her because our meetings were always public. Maintaining appearances. I manipulated her. I made her think I was really processing what occurred and trying to forgive so we could reconcile. I had no intention of doing so. I cleaned by keeping her led on. Remove her from my financial accounts, with her help kick her out of the lease, even got all her stuff moved out of our house into storage. After all that, I told her we'd move and that taking her stuff removed would make the existing home less haunting for me while I healed. Lying to her and keeping her submissive and cooperative made the separation tasks go well. She thought her actions were good for us. This technique helped me get through 4 of the 6 months needed to see the light. In early month 4, a family member she was staying with texted me asking if we were still working things out. This family member knew about Buddy and the truth, yet I replied to maintain my reconciliation charade. Yes. Why? I got a picture. My wife and buddy were eating out in a different city. The next text read, "This is happening now." Apparently, one family member saw coworkers having drinks after work. I blew it by letting my emotions take over. I immediately texted my wife to call her. She lied and said she was in an AA meeting and could contact me after she was done. Then I retaliated. "I didn't realize restaurant held AA meetings. Buddy was now your sponsor?" That caught her eye. She called me immediately and yelled at me for pursuing her. My response used foul language the mods will not allow on this sub. Basically telling her off, calling her names, and that I never wanted to talk to her again. Thus, she dated Buddy in the final 2 months of the divorce. This was first private but later public. I blocked both on all social media. Information came from our friends. Questions arose. More folks contacted me to ask what was going on. My wife was posting more status updates and photos of them together. Upon request, I would provide as much information as requested. Friendships and ties I valued and wanted to save, I needed their support. Just telling them the truth worked. But having support and hearing others who knew us both say what she did to me was horrific. To hear that approval felt more essential than divorce's material division. Finally, I had folks to vent to. Boy, did I vent? Nearly everyone I spoke to explain what happened had contacted her first. In some way, to identify this guy she posted so many photos of? All those follow-up calls to me had one thing in common. She greatly downplayed the occurrences. I believe she admitted to cheating. I was required to explain the things she omitted. Each of our acquaintances and most of her closest relatives were shocked. I feel they chose to support me and still do. I even asked them not to argue until the divorce was final. Pictures became bolder as they spent more time together. As their relationship became increasingly public, my phone rang more. So I had to beg folks to quit telling me about their developments. Because it still hurt me emotionally. Valentine's Day fell days before the divorce. Along with the Day of Love, came 3 screenshots. From 3 people identical social media posts, 2 pigs embraced with a romantic message and photo. About how incredible God is to provide her such a great boyfriend, she couldn't be happy. That she literally hopes to marry him. When a door closes, God opens a window. That bewildered response from extended family and her distant pals inquiring who that was funny. Even some surprised emojis. I don't mind them together. But it does. Loss still haunts me. I'm disgusted and regretful at how silly, nasty, and cold-hearted this woman is. That I didn't see this beast for so long sickens me. Buddy is a vile person. I have no respect or energy to comment or worry about him. Karma will punish him for staying with her. My ex-wife, whom I barely know. This makes it easier for me moving ahead. The day eventually came last week, our divorce date set by the court. I wasn't served any paperwork, so she couldn't fight me for anything not in the initial agreements. The ones we wrote when we pretended to try again. I kept my whole 401k. No spouse support. I owe nothing more. No attorneys. No court. No more dealing with them. Later that day, I blocked her number from my phone. Next day, 7 of my best friends, 6 of them were mutual friends, gave me a divorce party. The Snapchatters posted it all night. Documenting the party was worthwhile. That got my ex-wife to block them all on social media. Some received abusive SMS. Her maid of honor attended my divorce celebration and never wants to see her again. P.S. My final internal struggle. Someone may have insight. In the darkest days of my addiction, when I searched her digital footprints, I discovered she had been sleeping with a hometown man during this time. However, this guy is an old flame of hers. His wife and child live with him. I struggle to decide if I should tell his wife. Shame on me for not saying anything yet. However, the guilt of ruining a family is beyond my explanation. How do I tell her? Identify myself? Or keep it to myself? This is a nagging thought. Relentless, making me nauseated, frightened, and sometimes having dreams. Any advice is welcome. Considering all. Update 3. Hello again, everyone. 2nd anniversary of my D-Day in 17 days. Actually, when I read my past writings, in all honesty, I never imagined getting this far. In terms of time, with the relief of my anxiety, melancholy, and burden because my ex-wife did terrible things. Many of you compassionate people have asked for an update. I can only advise. Ask carefully. This should be my last update on the divorce. For those joining the conversation now, this light reading will get you up to speed. Whether you like being shocked, disgusted, or left saying unbelievable, Read the post below before proceeding. Obviously, my previous update was a long ago. However, some significant events occurred that demonstrate human depravity. The divorce was finalized in February 2019. I attempted to avoid touch. It's harder to do today. I didn't talk to her, yet occasionally I would see a post from a distant relative I hadn't blocked. Or a pal accidentally mentioned anything on a common acquaintance's Snapchat, such as that. All my true pals sought to keep these updates private. But some news was too huge to hide. May 2019 saw the first blockbuster. One of my greatest pals called to tell me that my ex-wife was remarrying a Tennessee man. Wait. What? Indeed, it was. My friend's husband hadn't blocked my ex-wife on Facebook. I took screenshots of the events leading up to the big news. All this happened between March and July 2019. But he seemed to leave her soon after the divorce. I don't know what happened or how. Sort of wish I did. Not surprising, at least. Starting April, Facebook status updates mentioned everything happening for a reason. And subversive signs she was falling in love. I feel sorry for someone. Suddenly in July, a simple photo and caption were on her wall. The image. We never heard of her or this odd guy. In courthouse, hands together, rings on fingers displaying a marriage certificate, geotagged in California. She proudly adopted her new surname, with a caption like, "I'm excited to spend my life with this great man. Feeling blessed. Tennessee, here we come." Astonished pause. This entire journey, from my first post until today, may appear implausible. I can only prove this. I'm recording God's truth. The next few sentences may lose some readers. If you've read this far, I hope you trust me. I wanted to warn you beforehand. I could not handle the situation's tremendous curiosity. To find out more, I contacted one of my ex-wife's cousin-in-laws, whom I liked. He agreed. Her new husband was someone she met online and talked to for months by phone, text, etc. They apparently fell hard and fast for each other. He called and proposed, and she said yes, they couldn't wait. Within a week of the proposal and her hasty attempt to notify her family and invite them to the wedding, which took place in a random location 2 hours from our hometown for reasons I don't understand, he flew to California for the Saturday wedding. That day was their first face-to-face meeting. Now husband and wife. The cousin says the kicker is that no family member attended her courtroom wedding. Whether due to lack of time to plan or disrespect to attend, marriage was unceremonious. Something that would have drove her crazy. That Sunday, she packed her belongings into a moving truck. They headed east for Tennessee on Monday. I was stunned. After hearing it from enough individuals, I believe the tale and time frame are true. That seemed unthinkable at the moment. That poor man. If only he knew. He would know if he would have known not to marry in California. A no-fault state where he may face my issue with her. Hopefully, he was unaware. Opposed to stupidity. In the meantime, I tried to forget them both. I took comfort in knowing they were relocating far away, where she would never randomly appear again. Summer 2019 ended, another bombshell in mid-fall. While browsing Instagram, a video showed my ex-wife carrying a dish in front of her father appeared. He covered his eyes with palms. Before I realized what I was seeing, I observed one blue frosted cookie on the dish. The video showed my ex-wife counting down. 3, 1, a boy. Her father opened his eyes. A crazy gender reveal video. Why is this visible? Her mother recently opened a public Instagram account and posted this video of her husband's enthusiasm. Instagram's algorithm suggested this video from someone I may know. Completely lost it. That was a terrible few days and nights. I felt disdain, agony, frustration, and a little envy. I want to be a dad. If these events had not occurred on our prior timeline, we may have had a child then. My child could have been it. I could have fathered. My age is 32. I assumed I'd be one by now. Not even on a path to a relationship or child. As a grown man, I know I have time to attain that dream with someone I love and enjoy. I keep comparing my life to what I thought it would be by now. I can only tell that in this situation, I prefer my position to the soon-to-be fathers. I expect the baby to be born immediately. I've been lucky and among friends to not hear either way. I know not knowing is best. Against the alternative. But occasionally I wonder. Good news. When I think about it, more days are passing for her and her dumpster fire life. Do not cross my mind. I consider that development. Some days are bad, whereby stay-at-home orders progressively worsen, giving days of despair. I'm lucky to be an independent contractor. Work on my computer at home. But some days are lonely. I do my best to walk. I miss the gym. I visit my parents as much as possible, only to have a company without a webinar or phone call. I know this is a common problem. Affects all our lives. Someone else is going through it. Sometimes I feel hopeless. My early days after D-Day come to mind. I feared I'd never survive. But I have. I will survive this terrible moment too. One day, one moment at a time, if necessary. Time advances despite its apparent slowness. I appreciate your time reading my update. Catch up on events. Finally, my deepest thanks to my commenters and messengers, and supported me throughout this life event. Without a doubt that collective strength saved me, encouraged me, and offered me another chance at happiness, after escaping misery. Thank you. To 2 more years of survival and success. Update 4, it has been 3 years since D-Day. And over a year since my last post. The first was last year. Where I can finally focus on myself. My ex-wife's situation is unknown. Since her entire family has stopped communicating with me. I've even muted and blocked mutual pals who may have shared undesirable information. From past experience, keeping anything related to her or her family off my feed would offer me the best chance to focus on my future without getting lost in the past. Truly, being without her family was hard. Because they were my family till she did what she did. Some I loved like blood kin. Accepting the loss of such relationships was difficult and unfair. Ultimately required. I know this method is profitable, because more days go by without thinking about her. Versus when I, despite thinking about her now, more like thank God I dodged that crap storm. Rather than sadness or pain. During the pandemic last year, my career changed drastically. I founded my own tech support IT system design consulting firm. A faith leap, but it paid off immediately. I got several contracts fast, including 2 government agencies in my county. Much work has been done, both contracts have been extended for 12 months. Not slowing down. Self-employed, having the flexibility to make such a decision with only myself relying on my success, has energized. The work I do for clients is my pride. Feeling self-worth has changed everything. I view the past differently and don't worry about the future. My job is steady. My finances are better than ever. Past recollections are mostly gone from my mind. My body is healthier than it has been since this started. I like myself as a man. The one issue I have due to my usual distrust of individuals romantically, especially women. I left my job easily since I distrusted others. Entering into business for myself seemed obvious. I can perform the work alone, and I always do. Romantically, the desire to be with someone has diminished. No problem being alone. And in my limited online dating experience, I discovered that mostly, it's a dump of broken people. I concluded this after 3 to 4 dates. Incredibly disappointing experiences with women who didn't want anything substantial, as their profiles suggest. Instead, they were neglected ladies. Who wanted every man's full attention. No one of my dates a year ago seemed believable, were simply talking to me. I felt like I condoned their fielding. No more of that for one lifetime. Not to be disrespectful to women, or that I took a pill, or went my own way. I crave that intimacy and connection. Want someone to share my life. Just because I feel that way doesn't mean I'll let anyone in. Just to avoid solitude. Willing to wait. Get my task done. Continue guiding my life toward success. Keep my eyes, ears, and heart open to the notion sometime I can love again. I have obnoxious self-talk. I think of that more than I should. Reminding me I'm 34 and that I should have a wife and children by now. That I should be joyful like my buddies. Who seem to be paying mortgages, traveling, loving their kids, and enjoying their best lives. I have what? Banked money. Do you feel better about life? Clearly, I need to improve this. But I know that rigidly following a mental chronology does not meet my needs. For now, I'm thankful for my life. I am incredibly lucky. Not living a different life, with my ex-wife attached. And I hope, if I keep prioritizing myself maximizing my days, no matter what happens, I'll look back and feel proud of myself, and that I capitalized on a terrible hand. Many thanks for your time, guidance, support, and wisdom. I couldn't survive without you. I spent 2 years loving someone who never saw me as a priority, giving her everything but only receiving disregard and exploitation. So, I've been keeping this story under wraps for a while, but now it's time to share it all. Warning, this is going to be a long one. Looking back, I realize I was the world's biggest sucker. The clues that my relationship was a disaster were everywhere, but I was too love-blind to notice any of them. I know, it's classic simple behavior. Melissa took over my entire life from the start. I am 27, she is 25, and we met at a friend's housewarming party. I'm generally the cautious type, never the guy who rushes into relationships without considering things through. I've always been the type of man who takes his time and considers the pros and drawbacks. But with Melissa? Holy! She had this way of drawing me in that I couldn't stop. She wasn't even trying, which is what made it so dangerous. She made me laugh like no one other. She had a weird-ass sense of humor that simply worked with me. She could make even the most ordinary Tuesday night feel like a vacation. She was also really hot, which helped. The type of girl who makes your pals email you, "Damn, bro, how'd you land her?" after meeting her for the first time. So, because I was so darn into her, I went all in. Like full throttle, no holding back. I always placed her first. It didn't matter if I was working 12-hour hours that week or had significant business to attend to. If she needed me, I dropped everything and showed up. That promotion I was looking for? I declined because she wanted me to go on a weekend trip with her and her pals. What about my closest friend's bachelor party? She left early since she wasn't feeling well and asked me to come over. I also paid attention to all the minor details about her favorite meal, her coffee preferences, which movies made her weep, anything with dogs, and which side of the bed she needed to sleep on. I organized surprise dates and gave her thoughtful gifts, not only on birthdays, but on random Wednesdays to demonstrate that I was thinking about her. I thought of her first. I practically planned my entire life around her, my decisions, my time, and my future plans. Every single thing revolved around her. I even looked at engagement rings, believing she was the one. And for a long time, I assumed she was just as invested in us. This was the lie I kept telling myself. What's the cold truth? She never exhibited the same zeal I threw into that stupid-ass relationship. She just adored being mine and receiving all of the attention. When we initially started dating, everything was great. We had been together for nearly 2 years before everything fell apart. She moved into my house about a year ago, which I actually own and pay the mortgage on myself. I paid everything: mortgage, bills, groceries, even her auto insurance and cell phone bill. I even helped her with school payments. She was finishing up her degree and worked part-time at this coffee shop, so I assumed I was investing in our future together. It's only temporary, I reminded myself. Once she graduates and gets a real job, things will even out. Spoiler alert, they never did. At first, it was very amazing. Melissa was humorous, charming, and energetic. We spent weekends exploring new places, binge-watching series, and simply having fun together. But then things began to change. And I was too dumb to notice. It's incredible how many red flags you can miss when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. For example, despite receiving money from her parents, she never volunteered to pay for anything. Or how she'd talk about her house and kitchen, when I was the one who was paying for everything. Or how she'd make tiny remarks about my pals being dull or my work being too corporate while happily spending the money from that corporate job. What is the worst part? She enjoyed telling everyone how amazing a boyfriend I was. She'd write these long-ass messages on Instagram about how blessed she was and how I was the best boyfriend ever, along with photographs of the presents I bought her or the trips I paid for. Her pals thought I was awesome. My buddies thought she was incredible. Everyone believed we were the perfect pair. What about behind closed doors? That's where the truth resided. And I was too blind to notice it. I continued offering justifications for her. When she would cancel arrangements with my family to spend time with her pals, I would convince myself that she is simply independent. When she would spend hundreds of dollars on clothes yet forget to contribute to groceries, I'd imagine she was still figuring out adulthood. When she rolled her eyes at things that were important to me, I convinced myself that we simply had different interests. I was creating excuses for her because I did not want to confront the truth. That perhaps, just maybe, I loved her more than she loved me. And it's not like she was some evil mastermind. She wasn't twirling her villain mustache or planning how to use me. She took, and I gave. Over and over again. It became our dynamic. She expected me to offer everything, while I anticipated little in return. That's the messed up part about love. You can sometimes convince yourself that's how it should be. But the warning indicators weren't immediately obvious. Just minor things I decided to ignore because I didn't want to accept the fact that I was being played like a fiddle. Melissa gradually became more distant. Not particularly obvious, just minor details that I overlooked. For example, she'd cease waiting for me to have dinner once I texted that I was on my way home. Or how she'd be staring at her phone the entire time we were together, chuckling at whatever she was looking at and scarcely acknowledging anything I said. I'd be talking about my day, look up, and notice her gaze had not left her screen once. She then began to go out much more frequently, 3 to 4 times per week. She'd say she was hanging out with the girls or had a study group, and I didn't take it seriously at first. I mean, she is entitled to her own life, right? I'm not a controlling boyfriend. However, it quickly developed into a pattern. Weekends, weeknights, random evenings, I'd come home from a 10-hour shift, eager to spend time with her, only to discover an empty house and a half-assed text stating, "Out with friends, don't wait up." When she returned home, she was either still on her phone or went straight to bed, stating she was exhausted. No. How was your day? No hugging, no love, nothing. What went wrong? I was still doing everything around the house, including cooking, cleaning, laundry, food shopping, and paying all bills. Meanwhile, she was rent-free, bill-free, and could do anything she wanted whenever she wanted. And I simply let it happen. I tried bringing it up once, remained calm, and told her I felt we weren't connecting anymore. She waved it off with some nonsense like, "I just need some me time, you're overthinking it." Overthinking? I was working more than 50 hours per week to support this relationship. And was I the problem for wanting to feel connected? But I did not want to appear clinging or controlling. So, like a moron, I dropped it. It worsened from there. On Saturdays, I would wake up to find she had already left. She'd text hours later, saying she was with the girlfriends, or just say something generic like out. I stopped asking for information because she would become defensive and act as if I was grilling her. "Why don't you trust me?" she'd demand. And I'd back off quickly. Classic manipulation. But I couldn't see it then. And she never went the extra mile for me, as I did for her. I'd organize these nice dates, and she'd say, "That's sweet," but never reciprocated. When I was stressed at work, my boss was an absolute nightmare. She'd text, "I'm here for you," but never show up. When my father became ill and had to be hospitalized, she went to brunch with her friends rather than accompanying me. "Hospitals freak me out," she said. I remember one time when I spent about a month organizing her birthday. She made appointments at a posh restaurant she had been wanting to try. She got tickets to see her favorite band. She even arranged with her friends for this whole surprise affair. It cost me nearly $1,000 all in. But I felt it was worthwhile to see her happy. Do you know what she did for my birthday a month later? She bought me a $50 Amazon gift card and spent most of supper texting her buddies. When I expressed disappointment, she had the audacity to inquire, "What?" "I got you a present." She stated it with a pouty expression, as if she deserved a standing ovation for remembering my birthday. Meanwhile, I'm standing there holding a gift card with the digital receipt still attached, indicating she purchased it that morning. Really thoughtful, babe. Our connection was extremely unequal. Looking back, if I was even 10 minutes late getting home when she wanted to go somewhere, she'd be upset for hours. But she could disappear for the entire evening without warning, and I was expected to be fine with it. If I wanted to spend time with my guys, I had to tell her a week in advance. She'd make plans with her buddies while we were doing something else, then just bounce. I started seeing other strange things too. How her girls' nights always seemed to include a large number of boys in the photos she was tagged in. She'd always place her phone away from me when texting. How she'd get all dressed up, full makeup, gorgeous outfit, for study group. How she'd arrive home at 2 a.m., smelling of wine and cologne that wasn't mine. I started getting these knots in my gut whenever she went out. I had a strong sensation that something was wrong. But I continued pushing it down, telling myself I was overly paranoid. What irritated me was that all of my friends noticed it. Kyle approached me at a BBQ and asked if I was okay, as Melissa seemed uninterested. And I defended her. I was truly angry at him. I told him he did not comprehend our relationship. My sister informed me straight out that Melissa was using me as an ATM. And I didn't speak to her for 2 weeks after that. That's how much I was in denial. I was paying for this chick's entire life. Housing, food, bills, and even her tuition, while she treated me like an irritating roommate she just had to be nice to on occasion. And I could not see it. Perhaps I didn't want to see it. Because seeing it would imply admitting I had been duped. That the relationship in which I had devoted 2 years, thousands of dollars, and all of my emotional energy was a fraud. That is a hard pill to take. However, reality finally smacks you in the face. My friend once asked me whether our relationship ended abruptly or gradually. The truth is, it was both. Like a frog in gently boiling water, I had no idea I was being roasted alive until it was too late. Melissa had always been somewhat selfish. However, it took a long time to register. because she would still do the bare minimum of relationship activities. She still claimed I loved you and would occasionally do something nice for me, as long as it didn't bother her too much. When other individuals were around, she continued to act as if we were a team. But behind closed doors, things only got worse. Then our plans lost their meaning for her. We'd agree to watch a movie on Friday night, but by Friday, she'd forgotten and made plans with her pals. When I reminded her of our intentions, she sighed heavily, as if I was being a burden. "Can't we just do it tomorrow instead?" she'd ask, already dressed to go out. And when we were together, which was becoming increasingly rare, she'd act as if being with me was a task she had to complete. She'd frequently check the clock, use her phone, or mention how much fun she was missing out on. And when I called her out on her attitude, she would gaslight me. "You're too sensitive. It's all in your head." Or, my personal favorite, "You're being controlled." She was a master of the quiet treatment. If I did something to irritate her, didn't get the exact brand of whatever she requested, I questioned her about arriving home at 3 a.m. I asked her to chip in for groceries on occasion. She'd get chilled. Would not speak to me. Would not look at me. I would pretend I wasn't even in the room. It could last several days. And I'd have to apologize simply to make it stop. Even when I had not done anything wrong. It was exhausting. My mental health was deteriorating. I could not sleep. Could not concentrate at work. I was constantly on edge, wondering which version of her I would find when I got home. Will she even be there? Would she speak to me? Or will I be ignored for some insignificant infraction? I started having persistent stress headaches. I lost weight because my appetite was shattered. My work performance suffered, which just added to my stress. Because I needed the job. To keep a roof over her head, and the vehicle she drove, in her name. Throughout it all, she kept talking. Never once was I asked whether I was okay. I never realized I was disintegrating at the seams. As long as the bills were paid, she could do whatever the heck she wanted. I could as well have been a ghost. That's when the wheels started turning in my mind. The internal struggle started. I started asking myself difficult questions. Was I really going to continue living like this? Allowing someone to deplete my emotional, mental, and financial resources? Was I being weak by staying? Or is it selfish to consider leaving? For a while, I fought it. I told myself I'd be a jerk for walking out. That partnership requires effort, patience, and sacrifice. But even the strongest man can only carry so much dead weight until it draws him down. And I was finished drowning. I had already checked out. So I started thinking about my departure strategy. How can I leave without destroying the entire place? Do I start small and gradually pull back? Or take off the band-aid and walk? Would she care? Is it only my pride that hurts? I did not want to be the man who quit up. But I also wasn't going to be the idiot that stuck around a losing game. What's the truth? I was already halfway there in my head. My body simply hadn't caught up yet. Then came the darkness, which propelled me the rest of the way. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. There's no catching her in the act. There was no screaming match. No smashing doors. If I had to wager, cheating was undoubtedly involved. But no, the item that opened my eyes was small, simple, but it hit harder than a slap in the face. It was the type of event that did more than just sting, it makes a mark. It was Friday night. I had been grinding all week. Late nights at the workplace, wrapping out a major project. Exhausted wasn't the right term, but I wasn't going to crash on the couch like some beaten down person. Nah. I had one final move to make. I was not searching for quality time. I wanted to flip the script. To let her know, without stating it explicitly, that I had already psychologically exited this relationship. I entered the house at 6, dropped my keys on the counter, and heard her music screaming from the bedroom. I already knew what it meant. She was preparing to leave. Again? Another night with the ladies. According to the Instagram photographs, there were also some strange males. 3 weekends in a row. The third time, I'd be left sitting alone in my own damn house, like an afterthought. I knocked once before pushing open the bedroom door. She was standing in front of the mirror in nothing but her underpants, doing cosmetics as if she were preparing to walk the runway. Normally, I would have paused to savor the scenery. Not tonight. Tonight, I was not here to admire anything. "Hey," I said, my tone smooth and casual. "Just another guy looking to spend the night in, right? We were thinking we could stay in tonight. Order some food, throw on a movie, just chill. Been a while since we had a night to ourselves." She did not even look at me. I didn't pause. Did not flinch. I just kept applying mascara as if I wasn't standing there. "Can't. Promised the girls I'd meet them at Ashley's. We're hitting that new club downtown after. The girls. Always the girls. It's funny how the girls' Instagram images had more male buddies than a frat house. I kept my voice quiet and my posture relaxed, leaning against the doorframe as if I had all the time in the world. Yeah, I thought maybe you'd want to catch up. We've barely crossed paths all week. I come home and you're either gone or heading out the door. She eventually looked at me in the mirror. Her eyes flickered with annoyance. It's not my fault you work so much. So there it was. That was a small poke. She understood why I was working so hard. To keep the house. To pay for her car. The bills. She didn't even acknowledge that all she had came as a result of me busting my ass. But sure, let's toss that back at me. I nodded slowly. Allow the silence to continue for a second. I continued. Relationships take work too. Just thought maybe we should make time for that. That is when she turned. Mascara wand in hand. I felt like I was just an annoyance in her night. She then dropped the line that sealed it. You're not my priority right now, okay? I have other things going on. The way she hurled those remarks at me was casual as hell. As if she were informing me we were out of milk. While applying mascara for some other dude to enjoy. The chef's kiss of disdain. Absolute masterclass in how to end a relationship in 10 words or less. 2 years. It comes down to just one line. The entire relationship boils down to me not even being on her list. I did not move. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just standing there. Allowing it to land. Allowing her to hear how quiet I could be when I was finished caring. What did you just say? I inquired. Not because I didn't hear it, but I did want her to hear it again. I wanted her to really consider what she had just said to me. She sighed, returning her gaze to the mirror, her tone casual and dismissive. Don't be so dramatic. I already have plans. We can hang out tomorrow or whatever. And that was all. The moment. The last nail. After all I'd done. After each time, I put her first. I was not even an afterthought. I served as a placeholder. An ATM with a heartbeat. I did not yell, did not argue. That would have given her excessive credit. I just stood there, looking at her reflection. I'm wondering how the hell I let things get this far. How I let her believe she could walk all over me and I'd just keep taking it. But that was the last time she spoke to me as if I were nothing. Fine, I answered in a firm voice. Calm. Go have fun. And I intended it. Go have some fun, Melissa. Enjoy it while you can. Because of the man standing in front of you. He's already left. I will, she responded. Not even picking up on my tone. She simply kept applying her makeup, as if we had been talking about the weather, not the end of our relationship. She departed around 20 minutes later. Did not even say goodbye properly. I just yelled, later, as the front door slammed. I stood in the kitchen, listening as her car pulled out of the driveway. I felt a strange sense of serenity rush over me. It felt like something had finally clicked into place. I took a soda and sat on the couch. Just thinking. I'm replaying the past few months in my thoughts. All the times she had brushed me off. All the girls' nights that strangely featured guys I had never met. Throughout my own relationship, I felt like an afterthought. I took out my phone and began scrolling through our text history. It was an eye-opener. Page after page of me checking in. Asking about her day. Telling her I miss her. Making plans. What were her responses? Always short. Often, hours later. We frequently canceled or changed our arrangements. When she was going through a difficult time, I would write her paragraph-long letters of encouragement and affection. She'd respond with the BBX, or a thumbs-up emoji. It was all fine there. In black and white. The evidence of her not giving a damn had been in my pocket the entire time. Frustrated, I locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch. But boredom drew me back in. I opened Instagram and scrolled idly through the tales, attempting to numb the frustration that was burning beneath my skin. I watched one of Melissa's pals post videos of their night out. Dim lights, loud music, people laughing, drinking, and grinding on the dance floor. The entire atmosphere of the place screamed pandemonium. My thumb paused for a second before swiping up to send a casual message. Is Melissa having a good time? I asked. No emotion. There's no edge. Just a basic question. A few minutes later, the friend responded. Yeah, she's great, totally vibing tonight. Cool. I left it to read. Then the following story appeared. And there she was. Melissa. On the dance floor. Grinding on a guy with his shirt half open and abs on full display. She was giggling, Her arms wrapped around his neck. As if she did not have a boyfriend at home. As if she didn't have someone to pay her bills, cover her tuition, and maintain a roof over her head. And with that, the switch switched. I locked my phone, tossed it on the sofa table and lay back, taking it all in. I was not going to argue. I was not going to blow up her phone or have a big confrontation. What's the point? She had already made her decision long before tonight. All that remained was for me to make my own. About an hour later, I heard the key enter the door. She stumbled in, giggling at something on her phone, with no care in the world. She didn't notice me sitting there in the dark lighting. "Have fun?" I inquired, my tone calm and steady. She jumped and almost dropped her handbag. "Jesus, you scared me." She laughed, but it was forced. She appeared disheveled, with smudged makeup and tangled hair. "Why are you sitting in the dark like some creep?" I shrugged. "Just thinking." She began going toward the bedroom, brushing me off like she always did. Like I was a roommate she tolerated. "Thinking about what?" she asked, looking over her shoulder. I saw her lean back, arms stretched across the couch, calm and cool. The kind of tranquility that comes when you've chosen to stop playing games. "About how easy it is to lose respect for someone," I muttered. "Not bitter? Just facts." She paused, looking back. "What's that supposed to mean?" I did not move, didn't blink. "Nothing, just an observation." She sighed, irritated. "Can we not do this right now? I'm tired and drunk and I just want to go to bed." "Yeah," I replied, standing up, my voice calm but sharp. "Bet you are. All that hands-on cardio must be wearing you out." This made her freeze. She blinked, confusion flashing in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I smiled. "You know what I'm talking about, Melissa." She opened her mouth, prepared to lie. I saw it on her face. Prepared to tell me, just fun, just friends. But I did not give her a chance. I didn't want her justifications. I didn't need her phony tears or pathetic apologies. I was done with the game. "I'm not in the mood for stories," I replied plainly. "Go to bed." She hesitated, as if she were waiting for me to start a battle. Because she realized she was doing something wrong out there. But there wouldn't be one. She no longer deserved that energy. She was not worth it. After that night, I did not simply stop caring. I cut the cord. Hard. I went full ghost mode in my own home. I didn't want to waste energy on someone who had already shown me where I stood in her life. Texting during the daytime? Dead. Are you asking about her classes? Done. Picking up her favorite snacks? Making dinner? Folding her laundry? Asking where she was going or when she'd return? Over. Why bother? If I wasn't her priority, she certainly wasn't going to be mine. She no longer deserved that version of me. But I did not stop there. I began severing the ties that bound her to the life I was paying for. I logged into each account. Car insurance? Gone. Phone bill? Gone. Her streaming services? Gone. I cut her off cleanly. No more free rides on my dime. I wasn't going to pay for her nights out, intoxicated Uber rides, or endless shopping sprees while she pretended to be single in public and treated me as an afterthought in private. What about her tuition payments? Cancelled. Did she want independence? She was going to receive it. At first, she didn't even notice it. She was too preoccupied with her own affairs to realize that her personal butler and private banker had gone off duty. However, after a week, she began to notice the shift. I noticed that the man who had formerly made her the center of his life no longer orbited her. Initially, the stares she gave me were subtle. Confused. Testing. She seemed to be trying to figure out what was wrong but couldn't quite pinpoint it. "You've been quiet lately," she murmured one night, sitting at the far end of the couch, her gaze shifting between mine and her phone. I shrugged without looking up. "Have I?" "Yeah. Is something wrong?" I let the silence continue. Then he gazed up at her, calm, unconcerned. "Nothing that matters to you?" Her brows pushed together. "What's that supposed to mean?" I cocked my head and smirked faintly. "It means exactly what it sounds like. If it's not your priority, why would you care?" Her eyes widened as the knowledge struck her. I was responding to her own words. It landed harder than she imagined. "Are you seriously still upset about that?" "It was just a comment. I didn't mean it." "Sure," I replied, standing up. "Whatever you say." And with that, I walked out of the room. I am not disturbed at all. She was left sitting there, puzzled and uncomfortable in the solitude. I maintained the pressure throughout the next few days. Or rather, I kept the pressure off. I was just absent. Physically there. But I mentally checked out. She'd try to strike up a conversation, and I'd respond coldly, with one word. She would suggest that we go out, and I would shrug. Nah. Busy. She'd ask whether I was mad, and I'd simply answer, nope. Just respect your priorities. When she realized her phone bill hadn't gone through. When her vehicle insurance company contacted her instead of me. When she tried to connect onto Netflix, she learned it was no longer her account. She said nothing at first. Just went silent. Confused? The kind of disorientation that sets in when someone finds the safety net they once took for granted has vanished. Watching her squirm was nearly enjoyable. Confusion turned to frustration. Frustration turns to desperation. She was unused to being ignored. I wasn't used to not being the focus of my own universe. The more I backed away, the harder she reached. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I go to the gym every day after work. It wasn't because I wanted to appear well for her. But I'd had enough of pretending to care. I started going out with my boys again, the ones she labeled uninteresting because they didn't fit into her small social circle. I got back into my activities. I spent my evenings doing anything I wanted for once. I wasn't living for her anymore. I was living for myself. And damn, it felt great. Then, like clockwork, she began trying. Going home earlier. My favorite takeout is suddenly being brought back. Asking about my day and actually waiting for a response. Dropping small compliments. Trying to snuggle up with me on the couch. Unfortunately, it was too late. I had seen enough. We've heard enough. She was just catching up, and I wasn't on the field anymore. But I allowed her to keep trying. Let her sweat. Allow her to experience what it was like to reach out to someone who did not respond. One night, she snapped. She came at me with tears in her eyes and a shaky voice, as if she were the victim. I don't understand what's happening, she told me. Why are you being like this? My expression remained bland. Cold. You made it clear, Melissa. I'm not your priority. You've got other things going on. I shrugged. So now, I'm focusing on my priorities. And honestly, you're not one of them. Her face crumbled. But that's not fair. I said one thing, one time, and now you're punishing me for it? I laughed. Hard. Not because it was humorous. But that was pathetic. One thing, Melissa? You've been showing me I wasn't a priority for months. Every time you blew me off. Every time you took advantage of me. Every time you looked at me like I was just there, like I didn't matter. I went closer, my voice low and firm. I paid for this house. Paid your car insurance. Paid for the food you eat, the bills that keep the lights on, your damn tuition. And all I got in return? You're not my priority. Well, message received, loud and clear. She broke. The tears came quickly, messy. As they always did when she felt control was slipping from her grasp. I didn't mean it like that, she shouted, her voice shaking. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking. I love you. But I was not buying it. I stood there, watching her fall apart. I felt nothing. Simply cold clarity. She could cry rivers, but I was not going to drown in them again. In that instant, the plan came together. I was not going to fight. I would let her weep. Let her believe she still had time to rectify it. And then I'd disappear. Quiet. Clean. She was not worth the drama. Did she want me to be an option? I'd teach her how it feels when a choice simply evaporates. The next day, I awoke at 5 a.m. I packed my essentials. And bounced. By sunrise, I was gone. No note. There's no explanation, just a text. You don't have to worry about me being your priority anymore. I'm gone. And I simply disappeared. She blew up my phone. Calls. Texts. Did not pick up. Didn't respond. Silence is golden. It was about time she realized that. First, she smacked me with some classics. Are you serious? You're being so dramatic. This is childish. Nah. What's childish is expecting me to stick around after being regarded as a side goal in her life. Then followed desperation. Let's talk. Please, don't do this. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And now, I am done. I stayed at my friend Kyle's place for a while, locked down a new flat, and went into full ghost mode. We changed our passwords. Cut her off from my credit card. Informed her parents that tuition is now their responsibility. It felt like erasing old files from a hard disk. Clean. Necessary. Satisfying. Freedom struck differently. No more devoting energy to a one-sided relationship. A month later, Mutual acquaintances informed me that she was spiraling. I'm having trouble making my auto payments. Dropping courses? Couch surfing? Her parents advised her to grow up before returning home. I didn't feel anything. But what about 4 months? She showed up at my new location. I have no idea how she found the address. She appeared devastated. Skinny. Tired. All that confidence she used to flaunt? Gone. Please, she asked. I've changed. I miss you. I messed up. I just stared. Yeah. You did. Can we try again? I'll prove it to you. You're my priority now. Priority? I asked, twisting my head as if I were truly perplexed. What are you talking about, Melissa? You stopped being on my radar a long time ago. I don't even remember what it felt like to care. She broke down, crying, begging. She made bogus promises that she would be different and change. What about me? I felt as if the weight had already been removed. She was the only one still clinging on. You should go, I responded calmly. Almost bored. There's nothing for you here, not anymore. I closed the door. Her sobbing from the other side, not my concern anymore. And damn, it felt great, freeing. It was like removing a weight I had no idea I was carrying. Several weeks later, I met somebody new. A badass girl. A real one. Genuine. Thoughtful. Actually understands how to be a partner. She says I am a priority, and she means it. Demonstrates it. Every day. A game changer. Word got out. Melissa listened. She went crazy. I began showing up where I might be. Texting me from a random number after I blocked her previous one. Desperation looks ugly on everyone. I ignored it. I was finished with her games. Last I heard, she dropped out of school. I moved back home. What about her life? A mess. Mine. Better than ever. It's funny how it works. She believed I was replaceable. It turns out she was. And now, she'll have to live with that. People ask me if I regret it. If I ever feel tempted to reach out. Nah. Leaving was the best decision I've ever made. Because when someone shows you that they do not care, believe them, and then make absolutely sure they are no longer your concern. My ex-boyfriend humiliated me in front of his friends and left me with an expensive bill. Later, I discovered he had lied about his job and life. My boyfriend called me ugly in front of his friends and ditched me in a restaurant, leaving me to pay for our meal. As he walked away, he exclaimed, "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you." I smiled and patiently waited. This morning, my phone exploded with 13 missed calls. You know, I am still processing what happened last weekend. I keep reliving it in my thoughts, wondering whether I dreamt the entire thing. But nope, my maxed out credit card and ice cream smears on my couch prove it was real. For reference, I'd been dating Ryan for 2 years. 2 years. Not just a casual fling or whatever. We had the entire routine down, Sunday Netflix marathons, awkward holiday meals with both families, and even that bizarre couples yoga class he insisted on trying, which we both were terrible at, to be honest. Things were not perfect with us, are they ever? But I assumed we were solid. We had discussed moving in together this summer. He had these little bothersome habits, like leaving his socks all over the place, texting while watching movies, and offering helpful comments about my appearance. Things like, "That shirt makes your arms look bigger," etc. "Have you thought about trying a different hairstyle?" I always dismissed it as him being honest. Gee, past me was such an admirer. So last Friday, Ryan texted me about a meal with several coworkers. He had never really included me in his job life before, always claiming it was unprofessional or whatnot, so I was actually excited. I even went shopping for a new outfit, damn my budget, and spent hours getting ready. I'm talking about an entire YouTube makeup instruction, the pricey straightener I only use on special occasions, and the works. I arrive at this highly pricey downtown restaurant with little portions and no prices on the menu. Red flag number 1. Ryan has already arrived, accompanied by 2 coworkers, Leonard and Pablo. There's a strange vibe that greets me as I approach. Ryan barely recognizes me. Only a half stand from his chair and a brief, "You're late." I was only 2 minutes late because parking was tough. As I sit down, he notices my attire and asks, "Oh, you wore that?" Not quietly, either. His companions exchanged this look, and I could feel my cheeks becoming hot. For the record, I was wearing a dark blue dress that I thought was attractive. Nothing outrageous or inappropriate. I try to shrug it off, saying, "Is there a clothing code I missed?" But he just shrugs and says they've already ordered appetizers. Cool. Ryan spends the next hour chatting about work topics that I don't comprehend while his friends nod along. When I try to join the conversation, Ryan either speaks over me or explains why I'm wrong about what I just stated. When I mention a customer at my store, Ryan interrupts with, "She doesn't really get how things work in the real business world." He brushes me off as if retail isn't a genuine job. I have been a manager for 3 years. I'm sitting there, growing increasingly uncomfortable, wondering if Ryan has always been this condescending and I simply didn't notice, or if he's playing off for his friends. Either way, it's not a good appearance. Leonard then asks how we met. I begin relaying the story of how his coworker, Vanessa, my best friend, introduced us. Ryan interrupts me in mid-sentence and says, "Yes, Vanessa felt horrible for her. I was doing a favor, really." Then laughs. You guys, my stomach actually sank. That is not even close to how things happened. Vanessa had warned me about Ryan's ego before we met, but she assured me that he was a wonderful guy underneath. Spoiler, he wasn't. I excuse myself to the bathroom, partly to avoid crying in front of them. I'm in the stall, texting Vanessa, like, "What is going on?" When I receive a message that Ryan has just tagged himself at this eatery on Instagram. With a boys' night out. Like I'm not even present. Vanessa calls me right away, but I send her to voicemail because I don't want the boys to hear me cry. I spray some water on my face, touch up my makeup, and give myself a sad little pep talk in the mirror about getting through dinner with dignity. When I return to the table, everyone is laughing over something, but it immediately stops when I sit down. Awesome. The server brings our main meals, and Ryan starts making comments about my food selection. I picked spaghetti, one of the less expensive selections, because I was already concerned about the amount. He keeps saying things like, "Carb loading for a marathon?" And, "That's a bold choice for someone with your body type." Each comment seems like a small paper cut, and they build up quickly. At this point, I'm barely eating, simply moving food around my plate and counting down the minutes till I can leave. Then Pablo asks Ryan about a presentation, and Ryan goes on to tell him how his employer loved his ideas and that he is now in charge of the entire project. Something clicks in my brain. Ryan had been worried about this presentation the week before, claiming that his segment was only 5 minutes long and that he was frightened. Is he suddenly a star? It's as if he lives in an alternate reality where he is the primary character. Then the bill arrives. The waiter places it on the table, and Ryan takes it, looks at it for a moment, and then slides it across to me. I believe he's just showing me the sum, but then he says, "And I'll never forget this." You know what? I don't think this is working. I stare at him, waiting for the punchline. There isn't one. I've been trying to make this work, but I'm just not attracted to you anymore. I think we should break up. In the center of a restaurant. In front of his friends. After 2 years together. Who does this? I'm taken entirely by surprise. Are you serious right now? This is how you want to do this? He stands up, gets his jacket and says, I still get a knot in my gut just thinking about it. A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize. Then he and his companion simply left. They all left together, laughing. I was left with a $347 charge for their dumb Wagyu appetizers and pricey beverages. The waiter approached with an expression of sadness that made everything 1,000 times worse. I paid the bill with my credit card, which I'm still paying off from Christmas, great, and managed to get to my car without completely falling apart. I called Vanessa from the parking lot, crying so hard that she couldn't understand me at first. She arrived at my apartment with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a bottle of wine, the actual MVP. Between ugly crying and stress-eating cookie dough, I told her everything. She was furious. I had to talk her out of driving to Ryan's house and raising a disturbance. That's when she went odd. She kept asking questions about what Ryan had said about work, the project he mentioned, his position within the organization. Sabrina, I don't know how to tell you this, but Ryan isn't who he says he is at work. Ryan isn't a hotshot marketing guy going to get promoted. He works as an assistant, making coffee runs and scheduling meetings. All the business trips? Complete fabrications. What about the major presentation? He was only preparing the slides for the actual team. What is the fancy title on his LinkedIn? Complete fiction. I felt like an idiot. For 2 years, he had been lying about almost everything, and I never questioned it. What else had he lied about? That night, when Vanessa had left, I went into full investigative mode. I went back over our text messages, photos, everything. There were so many contradictions that I had missed. Comments regarding money that did not add up. He had to work late several times, although his location indicated that he was across town. I could not sleep. I kept revisiting that moment in the restaurant. How little he made me feel. How ashamed I felt. I received a text message from an unknown number about 3 a.m. Hey, it's Cody from Ryan's office. Vanessa gave me your number. There's some stuff you should know. That's when things became really intriguing. First update. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to everyone who left positive comments on my previous post. I cried while reading several of them, in a good way. Many of you requested an update, so here's what happened next in this totally insane incident. So, after learning from Cody, who works with Ryan, that my partner of 2 years had been living in a dream world of his own making, I spent the following few days in a terrible post-breakup fog. You know the one. You alternate between bawling into a pint of ice cream and furiously scrolling through old images, wondering if any of it was genuine. My apartment resembled a catastrophe zone. The dishes piled up. Laundry is everywhere. Approximately 7 empty DoorDash bags because cooking seemed difficult. The hardest part was that I kept thinking of humorous things to text Ryan, only to remember what had happened. And it felt like getting discarded all over again. My mind was practically trapped in a loop of did that really happen? How didn't I see this coming? I'd also avoided social media since I knew Ryan's posts would be irritating. But on Wednesday morning, I surrendered and checked Instagram. Sure enough, Ryan was there, with a gym selfie. Captioned, "Level up. Know your worth." The arrogance. I almost flung my phone across the room. Vanessa came over that evening with takeout and discovered me wrapped in my comforter, like a melancholy burrito. She's been fantastic throughout this whole affair, making sure I eat actual food, listening to me whine about the same things again and over, and never saying "I told you so," despite her misgivings about Ryan from the start. While we were dining, Vanessa showed me her texts with Cody. Apparently, they had been talking a lot. He had tea to spill. According to Cody, Ryan had been telling everyone at work that he dumped me because I was needy and always discussed marriage. What? I did not create the Pinterest board, Future Home Ideas? Yes. Ryan actually owned one of these. He claimed it was research for a job assignment. Then Cody dropped the real bomb. Ryan wasn't simply lying about his job title. He was currently on probation for taking credit for other people's work, and he might be dismissed shortly. All those late nights spent working? He was hurriedly trying to correct errors before anyone noticed. Business trips? Complete fiction. I was still processing everything when my phone rang. It was Tina, Ryan's mother. I almost didn't respond. Awkward, but I decided to be mature about it. Tina has always been quite nice to me, as in, she remembers my birthday and asks me questions about my life. She sounded anxious and inquired whether everything was fine between me and Ryan. Apparently, he informed his family that we had a minor altercation but everything was great. A small fight. The man publicly humiliated me, deserted me in front of his buddies, and left me with a large debt. I attempted to be vague, claiming we were taking up space because I didn't want to place her in the middle. Then she brought up Ryan's birthday dinner on Saturday. And how my entire family was looking forward to seeing me there. You guys. I almost choked on my lo mein. Ryan informed his family we were still together. And that I planned to attend his birthday dinner. The supper was held at his parents' place. And apparently, he informed them that we had major news to share. After hanging up, I sat there stunned, as Vanessa looked at me as if I had grown a second head. She questioned whether he was insane or a pathological liar. Honestly, I wondered the same thing. That's when we devised the plan. I was not going to just ignore his family. They had always been friendly to me. And they deserved to know Ryan's true character. But I wasn't going to make a scene or be vengeful. I would simply attend the meal as invited and let the facts unfold spontaneously. Cody and I met for coffee the next day. We had only met through Ryan, so it was rather weird, but he turned out to be pretty nice. He validated everything and provided additional information about Ryan's work. The team Ryan claimed to lead. Actually, it's just him and 2 interns. What about the major presentation he oversaw last month? He was only managing the slideshow while his boss spoke. Cody appeared genuinely concerned on my behalf, claiming that Ryan's stories about me had always felt odd. Ryan apparently came to work saying that I was high maintenance, despite the fact that I was paying for the majority of our dates at the end. Because Ryan stated he was between paychecks. I noticed he had poor money management skills. Midway during our chat, Cody received a text from their boss asking if he could come in on Saturday evening to assist with an emergency project. Cody was disappointed since he had plans. But then I got an idea. What if Cody needed to drop off something at Ryan's parents' house during his birthday dinner? The timing would be ideal. As we were working out the specifics, my phone rang with a text from Ryan. First since the restaurant incident. It simply said, "We need to talk about what happened." I might have overreacted. Might have? I showed Cody, and he almost spit out his coffee. Overreacted is when you get annoyed about someone being late, he told me. Not when you publicly humiliate your girlfriend of 2 years and stick her with a $300 bill. I did not respond. Allow him to sweat. The following 2 days were a whirlwind of preparation. I was not going to this meal unprepared. I went over previous texts and discovered all the lies. Dates that he claimed to be at work. Conferences that did not exist. Cody verified that the stories about coworkers were all fake. Ryan posted images of himself from work events that were actually downloaded off the company website. Vanessa came over on Friday night to assist me choose an outfit. I'm not going to lie, part of me wanted to show up looking fantastic simply to spite him. But we thought that the ideal way was to look attractive without appearing to try too hard. We chose a plain black outfit that Ryan previously claimed made me seem average, which I now realize was his strange negging attempt. Because I always received compliments when I wore it. I barely slept Friday night. What if this backfires? What if his family supported him? What if I froze and couldn't go ahead with it? By Saturday AM, I'd eaten my nails down to nothing and mentally run through around 17 situations. Around midday, Ryan texted again. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Wear something nice. My parents are excited. I did not respond to that either. Allow him to think what he wants. I spent the afternoon getting ready, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. Vanessa helped me with my hair and gave me a pep talk when I started to lose confidence. At 5:30, I got into my car and drove to his parents' house. I had to pull over once because my hands were too shaky to drive securely. I sat for a minute, doing breathing exercises from a meditation app I got months ago but never used. What was I doing? Was this crazy? Maybe I should just block Ryan on everything and live my life normally. But then I remembered him sitting there at his birthday dinner, undoubtedly telling everyone a fabricated version of our relationship. Perhaps even making himself the victim. My determination hardened. I arrived at his parents' house around 6:15. Fashionably late. Which I knew would irritate Ryan. Several automobiles were already parked in the driveway. It appeared that the entire family was present. I checked my cosmetics in the rearview mirror, took one final deep breath, and headed to the door. Ryan's father opened it with a bright smile and a hug, leading me inside. The home smelled like Tina's delicious pot roast. I experienced a brief moment of sadness. I really liked Ryan's family. And this would probably be the final time I saw them. I rounded the corner and entered the living room. Ryan was there, drink in hand. He was in the middle of laughing at something his cousin had said. He froze when he saw me. He clearly did not expect me to show up, despite what he told his family. The look on his face was priceless, to be honest. Panic flared across his features for a brief moment before he calmed down and approached. With a phony smile, he hugged me tightly and murmured, "You actually came. We need to talk privately." I simply smiled and said, loud enough for all to hear, "I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything. Especially since you've been telling everyone we had big news to share." His face lost its color. Tina clasped her hands happily and asked if this was what she expected. Ryan's sister sent me a knowing look. His father started joking about finally having grandchildren. Ryan held my elbow too tightly and attempted to steer me down the corridor. But his mother yelled out that dinner was ready and that everyone should sit down. We all took our places around the dining table, with Ryan warily monitoring my every move. Cody sent me a text message. On my way. 15 minutes out. Ryan leaned down and hissed, "What are you doing here?" I thought after the restaurant. I simply smiled nicely and said, loud enough for anyone to hear, "Oh, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family about what happened at that restaurant, Ryan. I'm sure they'd love to hear that story." The look of complete dread on his face when his mother began bringing out the meal. It was worth every second of anxiousness to get there. It's game on. Second update. I'm finally ready to discuss what happened at Ryan's birthday dinner. Sorry for the delay. I needed a mental health day after all of this stress. Additionally, my Wi-Fi has been acting up because my neighbor grabbed my password and presumably downloaded the entire internet. Where have we left off? Right, me, sitting at Ryan's dinner table with his family, while he worried about what I could say. So there I was, surrounded by Ryan's folks. His parents are Tina and Ralph. His sister, Kayla. His grandmother. And 2 relatives whose names I constantly mix up. Tina's wonderful pot roast, those buttery mashed potatoes I'd literally dreamed about, and a fancy salad that no one was going to eat but everyone would pretend to like. The first 20 minutes were just unpleasant. Ryan kept trying to manage the conversation while giving me warning glances. I simply smiled and passed the bread rolls. I enjoyed the way his left eye twitched whenever I opened my mouth. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Tina kept the conversation going, bless her. She inquired about my family, job, and the usual small conversation. Then she remarked how proud everyone was of Ryan's great promotion. I almost choked on my water. I looked at Ryan, whose face had turned the same shade as the beets on the table. Ryan jumped in, discussing how his team was crushing their goals and how his boss was essentially grooming him for senior management. I simply nodded along, watching him burrow deeper with each syllable. Then Ralph, who has always been the quiet kind, suddenly inquired about the Johnson account. Ryan had apparently been informing his father about a large deal he was reportedly leading. Ryan's response was so ambiguous that it could have been a horoscope. Something about strategic pivoting and utilizing core competencies. It literally meant nothing. His sister, Kayla, attracted my attention across the table. She's always been the suspicious one in the family, the sort who Googles facts during disagreements and calls others out on their lies. She raised an eyebrow at me. Like, is he serious right now? That's when Tina mentioned the future. She inquired about our major announcement and whether it had anything to do with us taking the next step. Ryan nearly dropped his fork and murmured something about how it was not the appropriate time to address it. His grandmother, who has no filter and is my absolute favorite person in his family, cut in. So, are you two moving in together or what? Because Ryan said you were looking at apartments together. Again, new to me? The furthest we had gotten in that conversation was my remarking, maybe we should think about combining our Netflix accounts to save money. Ryan sought to redirect the subject back to himself, mentioning how his boss had given him a company card for business spending. I could not help myself. I was curious. What kind of expenses are you authorized to approve? He mumbled something about client dinners and team outings. At that point, I casually mentioned, oh, speaking of dinners, Ryan took me to this amazing restaurant last week. What was it called again, honey? The one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo? The color on his face drained faster than my phone battery on TikTok. Seriously, my phone can't take more than 20 minutes of browsing without dying. Anyone else? Before he could reply, the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Tina went to answer it, and I could hear her delight. Oh, Cody? What a surprise. Ryan looked like he was about to pass out. Cody strolled in, dressed professionally in a button-up shirt and holding a folder. He apologized for disturbing Ryan's birthday meal, but he had some work documents that Ryan wanted to sign right away on Monday morning. Tina, the perfect host, quickly offered him to join us for dessert later. Ryan attempted to lead Cody to the front door, but Ralph demanded they handle work right there at the table. Since we're all family here. Cody sat in the empty chair beside me, which I had carefully saved. NGL. Ryan gripped his fork so tightly that I thought it may bend. That's when Ralph asked Cody how the big presentation went. The one Ryan appeared to be leading. Cody seemed perplexed for a second. He eventually caught on. He looked at me, then at Ryan. And I could see him reaching a decision. Cody stated that the presentation went well. However, they added that their supervisor had delivered it, with Ryan and the crew offering assistance. Ralph was perplexed and responded, that's not how Ryan described it. I jumped in, because I'm messy like that, and asked Cody about Ryan's promotion. Cody seemed so uncomfortable, torn between loyalty to a coworker and not wanting to lie to an entire family. He fidgeted with his napkin and made some vague remarks about company restructuring. Ryan interjected with a phony laugh and attempted to change the conversation to sports or something. But his sister wouldn't have it. She asked Cody directly what Ryan's current title was. The hush that followed was like the moment you drop something in a public restroom. Everybody hears it. Nobody wants to admit it. Cody looked at Ryan, who was silently imploring through his eyes. Then at me. I nodded slightly. He cleared his throat and explained that Ryan was an administrative assistant in the marketing department. The silence. Ralph lowered his fork gently. His grandmother made a small sound. Kayla said something that sounded suspiciously like I knew it. Ryan quickly entered damage control mode. Cody expressed confusion. That he had several duties. That was complicated. But the dam had cracked. His relatives began asking him specific questions, which he couldn't avoid. When did you get promoted? He had not. Why did you say you had a team? He did not. What about that corner office you mentioned? Also fictitious. Ryan's stories became more detailed with each query. He kept looking at me, as if this was my fault. This simply increased my will to let everything out. Tina, bless her heart, tried to smooth things out. She advised we all have some cake and talk about brighter topics. Kayla questioned me about the restaurant I mentioned earlier as she went to the kitchen to get it. This was my moment. I took a big breath before telling them everything. Ryan invited me to meet his pals. How he had belittled me throughout supper. How he abandoned me in front of everyone and walked away, leaving me with a $347 bill I couldn't afford. Ryan tried to interrupt numerous times, but his father cut him off with a glare I'd never seen before. Pure disappointment. Ryan's defense? That I was exaggerating and playing the victim. I had embarrassed him in front of his coworkers by not fitting in. Leaving me with the bill was teaching me financial responsibility. His grandmother literally snorted at the last one. Cody, who had been quiet for most of this, eventually piped up. He confirmed my story. He also mentioned that Ryan had been bragging to coworkers about how he had put me in my place. He even took out his phone and showed Pablo's texts. Everyone, get your receipts. They were discussing what had transpired. Tina returned with the cake just as Ryan attempted to paint himself as the victim. She put it down and questioned, "What did I miss?" Nobody talked for a time. Then Ryan's father said, very gently, "We need to have a family discussion about honesty." Ryan erupted. Like a full-blown anger tantrum. He accused me of inciting his family against him, called Cody a traitor, and said that everyone was simply jealous of his accomplishment. What is success? He knocked over his water glass, pointed toward me, and shouted, "A girl like you should be grateful I even bothered with you." His mother gasped. His grandmother muttered something that I'm sure was old folks swearing. His sister only shook her head, as if she wasn't surprised. I remained calm and said, "The only thing I'm grateful for is finally seeing who you really are." Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so forcefully that one of Tina's ornamental plates flew off the wall and fractured. The aftermath was very quiet. Tina apologized to me around 50 times. Ralph appeared exhausted and dejected. Kayla helped mop up the spilled water. Cody apologized for his role in the unpleasantness. But he stated he couldn't stand by and let Ryan lie to everyone. The oddest thing happened. Instead of asking me to leave, they insisted that I stay for dessert. We all sat there. Ryan's ex-girlfriend, co-workers, and family, eating birthday cake, without the birthday boy. In any other context, it would have been the most uncomfortable thing ever. However, it wasn't. After the cake, I helped Tina clean up the kitchen. She kept apologizing, claiming she had no idea Ryan was lying about so much. She appeared really heartbroken. Not simply about what he'd done to me, but about who her son had become. I felt awful for her, to be honest. No parent wants to discover their child is, well, it's kind of bad. She calmly inquired if there had been any previous indicators. And I admitted that looking back, there were warning signs I had overlooked. Because I wanted to think the best of him. Ryan's dad grabbed me aside as I was about to leave. He praised me for being honest, and he apologized for what his kid had done. He appeared despondent, as if he was trying to find out what went wrong with his upbringing. I assured him it was not their fault. Ryan had made his own decisions. Cody volunteered to take me to my car, perhaps understanding that I needed a moment to comprehend things. As we proceeded down the road, he remarked that Ryan had been having troubles at work for several months. Taking credit for others' ideas. Lying about his contributions. Even fabricating client emails. He was on his final warning before possible termination. Ryan's intense need to appear successful made a strange kind of logic. His entire persona was based around this fabricated appearance of prosperity and status. When I considered it that way, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. I thanked Cody for supporting me and drove home. In a strange sense of emotional fatigue coupled with relief. Like when you finally remove an uncomfortable bra at the end of the day. Sorry for the strange analogy, but you understand what I mean. When I came home, I saw 3 missed calls from Vanessa requesting updates. I was going to call her back when my phone vibrated with a text message from Ryan. "You've ruined everything. This isn't over." I did not respond. I just blocked his number and made myself some tea. I should have been terrified or upset. But really? I just felt exhausted. And even a little proud of myself for standing up to him. I assumed that was the end of it. I actually did. But what about this morning? My phone blew up with 13 missed calls from Ryan's mother, his sister, Cody. There were several numbers I didn't recognize. Something had occurred overnight. Based on the increasingly agitated voicemails, Ryan had totally lost it. Last update. I'm now ready to explain the 13 missed calls. Thank you for your patience as I processed all that happened. I apologize for the delay. My laptop chose to perform an unexpected 4-hour update precisely when I sat down to write this. So where were we? Right. I awoke on Sunday morning after the birthday dinner debacle to discover my phone flooded with calls from Ryan's family and Cody. At first, I believed someone had died or something. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the notifications. Tina missed 5 calls. Kayla contributes 3. Cody sent 2. 3 numbers I didn't recognize. I called Tina back first. She seemed the most concerned based on her voicemails, which were simply variations of "Sabrina, please call me as soon as you can." She answered the first call, sounding weary. Ryan reportedly stormed out of the birthday meal. He'd had a wild night. He arrived at his ex-girlfriend's residence at 2 a.m. drunk and raving about how I had ruined his life. The ex, who I didn't even know existed, was understandably frightened and contacted Kayla, who had to go get him. But that was not all. Ryan had also spent the night sending bizarre messages to almost everyone we knew. He texted Cody and threatened to ruin him at work. LOL. Good luck doing that when you're about to be fired. He wrote a long, meandering update on Facebook about being surrounded by snakes, and how people would regret betraying him. Most concerning. He sent my address as a private message to his friend Pablo. He threatened to make me pay for humiliating him. Pablo, who evidently has a moral compass. I immediately called Tina and forwarded the message. That is why she was so desperate to contact me. I was sitting on my couch, in my ratty old jammies, hair still in yesterday's sloppy bun, trying to comprehend all of this information while Tina apologized about 50 times for her son's actions. I should have been afraid, I suppose. But really, I just felt exhausted. For example, if your phone has been stuck at 1% battery for several hours, just waiting for it to die so you may charge it and proceed. Tina insisted on coming over to make sure I was fine, which was extremely sweet. However, it also caused me to stress and tidy my apartment. Nothing pushes you to clean up like knowing someone's mother is about to see your living environment, am I right? I was practically flinging dirty stuff into my closet and cleaning hardened toothpaste off the bathroom sink. My doorbell rang. But it wasn't only Tina. Kayla was also with her. They brought coffee and some small pastries from the bakery near their house. Which, to be honest, is probably what I miss the most about being with Ryan. We sat at my modest kitchen table, with the unsteady leg that I've been wanting to mend for months. And they told me about Ryan's position. According to Kayla, Ryan has previously lied about his life. In college, he reportedly told everyone he was on the baseball team, when he was actually cut at tryouts. He once claimed to be speaking with a popular girl who didn't know who he was. He had a consistent practice of inventing this imaginary version of himself. One that was more prosperous, popular, and had more of everything. While they talked, my phone kept vibrating with texts from friends who had witnessed Ryan's social media meltdown. Vanessa was freaking out, wanting to come over with her boyfriend, who does kickboxing, just in case. She watches way too many crime series, I swear. My group chat was exploding with confusing messages about Ryan's theatrical subtweets. That's when the doorbell rang again. I literally froze. I wonder whether it was Ryan? Kayla peered through the slats and took a deep breath. It was Cody. Ryan had apparently been blowing up his phone all morning too. Cody wanted to warn me in person, since Ryan mentioned paying me a visit. So here we all were, me, Ryan's mother, his sister, his coworker, sitting in my living room on a Sunday morning, trying to find out what to do about this man-child's tantrum, because he was caught in his lies. If things weren't so stressful, that would have been hilarious. Imagine conveying this situation to someone who wasn't present. Cody added that their supervisor was already aware of Ryan's social media outburst. Someone took a screenshot and forwarded it. Monday at work was going to be interesting. Kayla was concerned Ryan may do something stupid if he lost his job, on top of everything else. That's when the doorbell rang again. This time, it was the building manager, looking quite weird. Ryan had apparently been downstairs causing a scene in the lobby. I demand to be led up to my flat. The manager had refused, bless him, and threatened to call the cops. At that point, Ryan stormed off. I got yelled at for lying, loud enough for everyone on the first floor to hear. Tina appeared devastated. She kept apologizing, saying she didn't know what went wrong with him. I felt bad for her. Imagine finding your adult son is essentially a living red flag. Kayla was more practical, advising that I document everything in case Ryan's actions escalated. We were all sitting there, trying to figure out what to do. My phone buzzed with a notification. Ryan tagged me in an Instagram story. Against my better judgment, and everyone in the room warning me not to look. I opened it. It was a photo of me from early on in our relationship. Sleeping on his couch, mouth open. Captioned, "Miss Perfect who ruined my birthday isn't so perfect. A girl like you should be grateful that anyone took pictures of you at all." As if that was his grand revenge, a slightly unflattering snapshot taken 2 years ago. I genuinely laughed out loud. Tina wasn't anticipating this reaction. But really? If this was the worst he could do? I was going to be okay. Just as we were considering the next step. There was a tremendous beating on the door. We all jumped. Then we heard Ryan's voice, slurring slightly. "I know you're in there. Open the door." Cody quickly jumped up, as if he were going to face Ryan. Which was nice, but unneeded. I was already calling the building's security guard. The advantages of a little more expensive apartment building. Ryan continued hitting and yelling. And I could hear my neighbor's door open as she came outside to check what was going on. By the time security arrived, Ryan had moved on to kicking the door. The security guard did not screw around. He warned Ryan to leave or he would contact the cops. There was some back and forth that I couldn't fully understand. Then came quiet. The security gently knocked and informed me that Ryan had left the building. But I was still in the parking lot, possibly waiting. Tina felt mortified. She insisted on going down and dealing with her son herself. And honestly, I was delighted to allow her. She was so distraught that Ryan's father, Ralph, had to come and pick them both up. The scenario was sad. After they went, Cody and I sat on my couch in startled quiet for a while. He eventually broke it by asking, "Do you have any alcohol?" Which seemed like an appropriate reaction to the morning we'd experienced. We shared a bottle of wine I had saved for a special occasion, and this certainly counted. Cody left in the late afternoon, and I was emotionally weary. Vanessa came over and spent the night, just in case Ryan decides to make another appearance. He didn't, fortunately. We ordered pizza, watched horrible reality TV, and tried to understand how chaotic my life had become. The following weeks were an adjustment period. Ryan was sacked from his work after failing to show up for 3 days. Sending disrespectful emails to multiple coworkers. He temporarily went back in with his parents. I only know this because Kayla and I have remained in touch. She's actually pretty cool. We get coffee occasionally. Ryan attempted to call me several times, leaving voicemails ranging from angry, tearful, strangely nostalgic. I preserved them all, just in case. However, he never responded. He made a couple bogus Instagram accounts to contact me, but they were so clearly him. Who else would type, "You're making a big mistake," with that spelling error? I immediately blocked them. The strangest thing was running into him at Target, approximately a month later. I was in the home area, looking for shower curtains. Suddenly, he appeared, holding a package of socks. And it looked like he hadn't slept in days. We established eye contact. Just for a second, I was concerned that he would cause a scene. Instead, he simply turned around and went away. He left his shopping cart right in the aisle. It was 3 months ago now. Ryan eventually relocated to his uncle's home in another state. According to Tina, who continues to send me holiday cards. It's lovely but awkward. His social media has been unusually silent. Kayla believes his parents have finally cut him off financially, until he receives therapy. As for me, I'm doing very well, actually. My apartment now seems like mine again. I've changed the furnishings and replaced the items that reminded me of Ryan. The oddest effect of all this could be my surprising friendship with Cody. We're not dating or anything, though Vanessa is still working to make that happen. But we have lunch occasionally. And text about ridiculous TikTok videos. It's good having someone who witnessed the entire Ryan story. And knows why I'm having trust issues the size of Texas. Looking back on everything, I'm not angry anymore. Well, not just angry. I'm also weirdly grateful. Not for dating Ryan. Certainly not that. But to discover who he truly was, before things progressed further. Imagine if I had moved in with him. Shudder. When I was 8 years old, my parents cruelly threw me out of the house. I wandered through the night until my aunt found me and took me in. I'll never forget that night when I was only 8 years old. My harsh parents yelled at me and threw me out the house. When I attempted to force my way back in, my mother burst in wrath and hit me so hard that I staggered and fell onto the road. But what my father did next was even more shocking, something I could not have predicted. Hello, my name is Mia Anderson and I'm 23 years old. But the story does not begin today. It began 15 years ago, when I was only 8 years old. That night, I learned that not all parents love their children equally. That night, I lost my family. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, in a house that resembled a museum rather than a home. Everything was shiny, expensive, and flawless, except for me. My parents, Jonathan and Catherine Anderson, were well-known attorneys for their discipline, brilliance, and accomplishment. In their world, there was no place for weakness, failure, or mistakes. They expected excellence in everything, particularly from their children. My younger brother, Adam, was their pride and pleasure. Adam was everything they wanted: brilliant, engaging, and naturally talented. Whenever he accomplished something, our parents showered him with love, praise, and attention. He was the golden child. And me? I was merely the additional one. They weren't sure what to do with the mistake. No matter how hard I worked, I was never good enough. If I received a B on an exam, my parents would stare at me as if I had personally embarrassed them. If Adam received an A, they would celebrate. If I needed help with my homework, they told me to do it myself. If Adam required assistance, they engaged the best tutor money could buy. They acted as if he deserved success while I deserved nothing. I spent my childhood chasing their approval, convinced that if I worked hard enough, if I tried my hardest, they would eventually notice me. Finally, they loved me in the same manner that they loved Adam. But nothing I accomplished was ever satisfactory. When I succeeded, I was invisible. When I failed, I was apparent. When I was 8 years old, things changed. It was the night I realized that no amount of effort could make them adore me. That night, they made a decision. The night they decided I didn't fit into their beautiful family. On a frigid evening, my life as I knew it came crumbling down. I had just gotten back from school, my backpack dragging heavily on my shoulders. But the weight in my chest was far heavier. That day, I took an important arithmetic test. I'd spent endless evenings studying, going over my notes over and again, thinking that this time I'd make my parents proud. Despite my best efforts, I only received a C+ in the end. I understood what that meant. As soon as I went inside the house, I could hear their voices in the living room, loud, piercing, and disappointed. My hands gripped around my test paper while I remained frozen in place, listening. "She's an embarrassment," my mother said sharply, each word piercing the air like a knife. "We have given her everything, every opportunity, and she still fails us." My father's voice followed, colder than before. "We've done our best to shape her into something worthwhile, but she keeps proving she's not meant to succeed." My gut wrenched horribly, and I felt my breath catch. They were talking about me again. "She's lazy," my father added. "No matter how much we push her, she never rises to the occasion. She is not the kind of child we can be proud of." Tears welled in my eyes, blinding my vision. I tried. I'd done everything I could and worked harder than ever. But it wasn't enough. Then my mother's voice broke the silence in a way that made my blood run cold. "We can't keep doing this. Maybe it's time for her to leave." I felt the ground beneath me shift. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. I was 8 years old. She couldn't have meant that. But she did. After supper, my parents summoned me to the living room. My father sat on the couch with his arms tightly crossed over his chest. My mother stood beside him with an unreadable expression. Adam was nowhere to be found. He never had to witness these events. "Mia, we've talked about this," my father remarked, his tone calculated and dispassionate. "You aren't meeting our expectations, and quite frankly, we're tired of trying." A shiver went down my spine. "Trying what?" My voice was barely audible, a murmur of bewilderment. My mother did not hesitate. "Trying to fix you," she stated bluntly. "If you can't live up to what we expect, then maybe you don't belong here." My breath got locked in my throat. My hands trembled by my sides. Where would I go?" I said, barely above a whisper. My father sighed, unfazed by my apprehension. "Figure it out," he said. Something within me shattered. Panic clutched at my chest. "Please," I implored, my voice faltering as tears ran down my cheeks. "I'll do better. I'll work harder. Just don't send me away." I walked closer, reaching for my mother's hand, hoping for some trace of warmth or hesitancy. Instead, she punched me. It happened so quickly that I barely had time to respond. Her punch hit my cheek, sending a ripple of anguish through my skull. My head snapped to the side, and I staggered, almost dropping to the ground. For a brief moment, the entire globe went silent. My heart hammered in my ears. My skin burned where she had smacked me, and the sting went deep into my bones. I held my cheek and trembled as I felt the painful, swollen skin. I gazed up at her, tears in my eyes, grief and betrayal etched over my face. But my mother did not even flinch. "Get out," she ordered, her tone low, harsh, and definitive. I looked to my father for some sort of protest, some indication that he disagreed with what had just occurred. But he didn't even look at me. That was it. That was when I stopped being their daughter. The moment I realized they never wanted me in the first place. The sting on my cheek grew worse while I remained there, stunned in shock. My mom had punched me. My father had allowed it to happen. And now they're throwing me away as if I'm nothing. Tears obscured my vision, but I refused to cry in front of them. Crying would not change anything. Begging would not make them adore me. They had made a decision. Without further word, I turned and dashed to my room. My hands shook as I grabbed a tiny suitcase and packed whatever clothes I could locate. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I was meant to do. I just knew I needed to leave. As I zipped up the suitcase, I paused for a second and looked around my room. The walls were blank, except for a few old sketches from my childhood. My bed, which I had slept in for years, suddenly felt unfamiliar. This house has never truly felt like home. But now I realize, it never will. With my heart thumping, I grabbed the strap of my backpack and headed toward the front door. My mother was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, looking at me with frigid contempt. My father was in his normal chair, thumbing through a newspaper as if nothing had happened. Adam was still missing. I swallowed the lump in my throat. One final chance. Maybe if I stared at them long enough, they'd see the sorrow in my eyes and alter their minds. Perhaps my mother will regret slapping me. Perhaps my father would tell me to stay. However, they didn't. My mother grabbed the doorknob and swung it open. "Leave." I went outside, hugging my bag tightly, and the cool night air sent shivers down my spine. My feet felt heavy as I walked down the stairs, and my mind begged me to turn back, to do anything, to make them want me. The door slammed closed behind me. I was alone. As I walked through the streets of Seattle, a sense of dread sank in my chest. The street lights flickered above me, sending sweeping shadows across the pavement. The sound of distant traffic, laughter from surrounding homes, and the odd barking of a dog all added to my sense of solitude. I wasn't sure where to go. I did not have a plan. I only had the clothing on my back, a swollen cheek, and a heart that seemed torn into pieces. Hours passed as I wandered aimlessly, fatigue settling into my bones. The chilly wind clawed at my skin, and the hunger in my stomach served as a harsh reminder that I hadn't eaten since dinner. I wanted to collapse on the sidewalk and give up, letting the world take me whole. Then I heard a familiar voice. I stood in the dark light of a street lamp, arms wrapped around myself in a desperate attempt to stay warm. My feet ached from walking, my stomach twisted from hunger, and the sting of my mother's hit lingered on my cheek. I felt entirely lost. The streets of Seattle stretched out before me, foreign and unwelcoming. I had nowhere to go and no idea what to do next. My parents, no, they weren't my parents anymore, had made it clear that I was no longer a part of their lives. The realization brought another flood of hopelessness smashing over me. And then, in the depths of my sorrow, I heard a voice. "Mia." I froze. My breath caught. The voice was warm, familiar, and filled with concern. I turned back, my heart thumping, and noticed a woman standing a few steps away. It was Mary. My aunt. For a minute, I was unable to move. I wasn't sure if I was hallucinating or if my fatigued mind was pulling a nasty joke on me. But as she got closer, her eyes scanned my face, taking in my injured cheek and the bag hanging over my shoulder, I realized this was true. "Oh my God, Mia? What are you doing out here?" she inquired, her voice filled with concern. I opened my lips to respond, but the words would not come. How could I describe what had just occurred? How could I tell her my mother had punched me? That my father had witnessed it and said nothing? That they'd discarded me like garbage? Mary must have noticed the agony in my eyes because, before I could even speak, she rushed up and hugged me. It was the first proper hug I had received in years. The warmth of her hug stirred something deep within me. I'd been fighting back my tears, refusing to cry, refusing to show my parents how deeply they had hurt me. But as Mary's arms wrapped around me, I shattered. A sob slipped from my lips. Then another. Before I knew it, I was crying furiously into her shoulder. She said nothing. She just held me while I cried and fell apart. When I finally pulled away, my breath caught. She tenderly caressed my face, her fingertips stroking against my injured cheek. Her eyes darkened with rage. "Did someone hurt you?" she said, her tone stern. I paused, but I could not lie. "It was my mom," I said quietly. "She hit me. And then they They told me to leave. Mary inhaled quickly, her jaw clenching. For a minute, she appeared to want to march right to their house and give them a piece of her mind. Instead, she took a long breath and gently exhaled, as if forcing herself to remain calm. Come with me, she urged, her tone softer now. You're safe now, Mia. I promise. She held my hand, and for the first time that night I felt less alone. Mary guided me through the quiet neighborhoods, her grip hard yet pleasant. My legs ached, and my body was fatigued from the constant walking, but I didn't care. For the first time since leaving that place, I felt secure. We arrived at her apartment, a small but charming space tucked in a quiet section of town. When she unlocked the door and led me inside, I felt an overwhelming sense of warmth. Something I had never felt in my own home. There were warm blankets spread over the couch, family portraits on the walls, and the faint aroma of vanilla candles wafted through the air. Sit down, sweetheart, Mary urged gently, directing me to the kitchen table. You look exhausted. I obeyed, my body too exhausted to argue. I watched her walk about the kitchen, preparing a bowl of soup and pouring me a drink of water. She did not ask me 100 questions. She did not demand explanations. She simply took care of me. As she placed the bowl in front of me, I paused. My mother had never done this. Not while I was unwell. Not while I was upset. Not ever. Eat, she spoke quietly. And then we'll talk. My first sip of soup warmed me from the inside out. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I started eating and finished the entire bowl in minutes. Mary sat across from me, studying me intently. Now, she replied, folding her hands together. Tell me everything. I gulped hard, my gaze sliding to the table. Where do I even start? They never wanted me, I finally admitted, my voice lifeless. No matter what I did, it was never enough. Adam was their favorite. I was just there. A failure. A disappointment. Mary's face clouded, but she did not interrupt. I got a C+ on a math test today, I explained. And that was the final straw. They said I wasn't worth the effort anymore. My mom. My fingers brushed over my injured cheek, the recollection still fresh. She hit me. Then they told me to leave. An uneasy quiet enveloped the room. When I finally looked up, Mary's face was furious. I always knew your parents were cruel, she continued, her voice trembling. But this is unforgivable. Tears welled up again in my eyes. But this time, I wasn't simply sad. I was also angry. How could they have done this to me? How could they sleep comfortably if they had abandoned their own daughter? Mary stretched across the table and squeezed my hand. Listen to me, Mia. You're not a failure. You're not worthless. You are smart and strong, and you didn't deserve any of this. A lump developed in my throat. I'd spent my entire life trying to prove myself to my parents, but as I sat in Mary's warm, comfortable kitchen, I came to a realization. I did not have to prove anything to them. They'd made their choice. And now I'll make mine. I was not going back. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly. There were no quiet arguments outside my door. There is no overpowering sense of failure pushing down on my chest. Mary's corridor light cast a nice glow into the guest room, and a blanket pulled over me provided warmth. For the first time in my life, I was not simply surviving. I felt safe. Mary served me scrambled eggs and toast for breakfast the next morning. It was unusual to have someone care about me unconditionally, without expecting perfection in exchange. As I ate, she sat across from me, drinking her coffee. You can stay here for as long as you need, she stated simply, as if it wasn't a question. I hesitated, a tinge of doubt seeping in. I don't want to be a burden, I muttered. Mary scoffed and shook her head. You are not a burden, Mia. You never were. Her words sank deep into my chest, releasing years of self-doubt. I had long believed that I was unwelcome. That I was not good enough. But maybe the problem was never mine. Perhaps it was them. With Mary's help, I began to rebuild my life. She assisted me in transferring to a new school where I could start over, free from the continual weight of my parents' expectations. At first, it was difficult. I still cringed at loud voices. I still felt like I needed to prove my worth to everyone around me. But Mary never made me forget my potential. You're smart, Mia. You can do anything you set your mind to, Mom told me every day. I studied harder than ever. Not because I want approval, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable. Slowly, I began to excel in school and gained confidence in my own talents. Meanwhile, my brother Adam remained inside the house. Still imprisoned by our parents' crushing expectations. I scarcely spoke to him throughout those first several years, but I was concerned about him. I'd escaped. However, he was still stuck. My phone chimed one evening as I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my school assignments. My heart almost stopped when I saw Adam's name on the screen. Adam. Hello, could we talk? I stared at the message, my fingers hanging above the keyboard. A part of me wanted to dismiss it, to leave that period of my life behind and never look back. But another part of me, the one that still cared despite everything, understood Adam was contacting me for a reason. I took a deep breath. Mia, what is going on? Little did I realize the text would signal the beginning of something I never expected, a shift that would alter everything. Adam's letter sat on my screen, shimmering in the softly lighted room. For a time, I paused. Why now? He had never reached out to me before, not when I was fighting to meet our parents' unrealistic expectations, not when I was kicked out, and not in the years following. But something told me this wasn't a regular text. I responded fast. Yes, we can discuss. What's happening? His reply came almost immediately. Adam. Can we meet? I need to get out of here for a while. I could sense the desperation in his words. It wasn't like Adam to sound unsure, not the golden boy, the favorite child who always got his way. But something had changed. An hour later, I met him in a quiet coffee shop near Mary's flat. When I saw him, I knew something was wrong. The confident, polished brother I recalled appeared weary. His eyes were sunken, his posture slouched, and his fingers tapped nervously on the table. He looked up as I sat down, his face hesitant and almost remorseful. Hey. I nodded and kept my voice neutral. Hey. We didn't speak for a while. The stillness between us was dense with unspoken words. Finally, Adam moaned and scratched his temples. Mom and Dad are suffocating me, he said. They won't let me do anything that doesn't fit their idea of success. I told them I wanted to go to a performing arts school, and they lost it. They said I was wasting my potential. I frowned. What do you mean? I thought you wanted to follow in their footsteps, law school, corporate success, all of that. Adam gave out a hollow laugh. That's what they wanted. Not me. For the first time, I looked at him, not as the sibling I despised for being the favorite, but as someone who had been trapped like me. He may not have been kicked out like I was, but he had been just as confined and crushed by expectations. I can't do this anymore, Mia, he said, his voice raspy. I don't want to wake up every day feeling like I have to be perfect just to be worthy of their approval. I had a strong sense of recognition. I understood that feeling better than anyone else. I took a deep breath. Then I stopped hesitating. Adam looked up at me, bewilderment in his tired eyes. You don't owe them your life, I stated firmly. If you don't want the life they're forcing on you, then leave. Start over. You have a choice, Adam. His jaw stiffened. It's not that easy, he remarked. I still live under their roof. They pay for everything, school, clothes, food. If I leave, I have nothing. I slumped back in my chair, contemplating his comments. He was not mistaken. It was simpler for me because Mary had taken me in and given me another chance. Adam had no one else but me. I met his gaze. Then come stay with me. He blinked, taken aback. What? I mean it, I said. If you really want out, then leave. I'll help you figure things out, the same way Mary helped me. You don't have to do this alone. Adam swallowed hard, his hands curling into fists against the table. For a little while, he said nothing. Then he nodded. Okay. And just like that, everything changed. For years, I assumed Adam was the lucky one, the one they cherished and desired. But now I knew he had been stuck in the same way that I was. The difference was that I'd already broken free. Now it was his time. The tension in the air the night Adam departed our parents' house was almost unbearable. He had packed a single bag, just as I did years before. But, unlike me, he could choose to leave. He was not being tossed out. He was finally gaining control of his own life. Mary and I waited for him outside, in her car, which was parked a few homes away from our boyhood home. My gut was tight with apprehension, knowing our parents would not let him leave without a battle. But Adam was determined. He'd spent years as their perfect son, their golden child. And now, for the first time, he was selecting himself. The front door opened 15 minutes later, and Adam stepped out onto the porch. Mom and Dad were just behind him. Even from a distance, I could see the rage in their faces. Mary tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Are you sure he's ready for this? She wondered. I breathed slowly. He has to be. Adam strode down the stairs, his motions rigid and strained. My father stood at the doorway, arms crossed, face twisted with barely restrained rage. "If you leave now, you will not come back," my father cautioned. Adam paused. I could practically feel his internal struggle, years of training, years of being the preferred son, the one they shaped to their liking. Leaving meant losing up all of that. But then he took another stride forwards. "Then I won't come back." My mother gave a bitter laugh. "You're making a mistake, Adam. You're nothing without us." I felt my nails drive into my palms as she said. I'd heard those identical lines before, words designed to rob us of our confidence and make us believe we were powerless without them. Adam, however, did not shy away. He returned to them for one last time. "No, Mom, I was nothing with you." And with that, he walked towards us. Mary accelerated as soon as he got inside the car, pushing away from the curb. I turned to face Adam, expecting him to display some expression of contrition. But instead, he sighed with relief. For the first time in his life, he was free. That night, Adam stayed in Mary's guest room, which had become my safe haven all those years before. He was quiet at first while processing everything. But as we sat at the kitchen table, something about him felt lighter. "I should have done this sooner," he said, staring at his hands. I gave him a slight smile. "You did it when you were ready. That's all that matters." Mary touched his shoulder. "You'll figure things out, Adam. And you don't have to do it alone." I nodded in accord. "We're in this together." For years, I believed that my family was irreparably shattered, and that I would never have a sister who genuinely understood what I had been through. But as I sat with Adam and watched his confidence begin to recover, I noticed something. Perhaps we were not broken. We were just breaking free. The days that followed seemed strange. Adam was finally out of his parents' grasp, but he was still getting used to his new situation. At first, he was quiet and reserved. He spent a long time lost in thought, contemplating what had happened. But gradually, I began to see the true guy emerge. He played his guitar more, something he had to give up due to our parents' stringent prohibitions. He began talking again about music school, songwriting, and finally doing something for himself rather than for them. It was weird to see him without the weight of their expectations on him. However, it was wonderful. We were sitting on Mary's little balcony, admiring the city lights, when Adam turned to face me. "Do you ever think about them?" he inquired tentatively. I breathed gently, my fingers stroking the mug's rim. "I used to," I confessed. "For years, I wanted them to regret what they did. I wanted them to realize their mistake, to come find me and beg for forgiveness." Adam nodded while looking down. "And now?" I considered it briefly before shaking my head. "Now, I don't care anymore." And I intended it. I had spent so much of my youth and adolescence needing something from them that they would never give me. Love, approval, or an apology. But the truth was that I didn't need it anymore. They were not part of my life. I was better off without them. Adam remained silent for a time before nodding. "I think I'm getting there too." We sat in peaceful silence, the weight of the past gradually fading into the night air. As the months passed, I immersed myself in my studies, resolved to make something of my life, not for them, but for myself. Adam began writing and recording music with a newfound freedom. For the first time, we were creating lives we truly desired. And then one day, Mary approached us with an idea that would change everything. We were sitting in the living room, laughing at one of Adam's stupid song lyrics, when she gave us a thoughtful look. "What if we did something with all of this?" she was asking. Adam lifted his eyebrow. "With my music?" "Number. With everything we've been through," she clarified. "You both know what it feels like to be rejected, to be told you're not enough. What if we created a place for kids who feel the same way?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Mary leaned forward, eagerness in her eyes. "A community center? A place where kids and teenagers who feel lost, abandoned, or pressured by their families can come and just be themselves. No expectations. No judgment. Just support." The notion settled in my chest like a spark waiting to ignite. I remembered the kid I used to be, the child who yearned for affection, a secure haven, and someone to tell her she was enough. I envisioned what it would have been like if such a location existed back then. Adam sat up taller. "We could have music programs, art classes, tutoring. A place where kids can actually do what they love without fear of being told they're wasting their time." Mary nodded. "Exactly." I met Adam's stare and knew we were going to do this. We intended to make our misery significant. We were finally going to build the home we never had. Months later, what began as a notion became a reality. The Anderson Community Center, which we called after ourselves rather than our parents, gradually took shape. We got a small place, raised finances, and created something from nothing. A place where children might pursue their passions without fear, pressure, or rejection. Every time I stepped inside, I felt a strong sense of purpose. This was what I was destined to do, not prove myself to my parents or seek their favor. But just when I thought I'd left the past behind, it came calling. It happened during a calm afternoon. I was in the community center reviewing schedules when my phone rang. I hadn't seen this number in years. My stomach turned. I almost didn't respond. But then curiosity got the best of me. "Hello?" A crisp, familiar voice came through the line. "Mia." I froze. My mother. It had been years since I'd heard her voice, but just hearing it felt my chest constrict. "We need to talk," she said. I clenched my jaw. "We really don't." She let out a deep sigh. "Enough with the attitude, Mia. We've been patient, but this little act of rebellion has gone on long enough." I nearly laughed. Act of rebellion? Did she really believe I had established a whole new life only to spite her? "What do you want?" I inquired plainly. "Your father and I have been thinking about the future," she said. "And we believe it's time you come home." I grabbed the edge of the desk. Home. As if they hadn't discarded me like rubbish. As if she hadn't punched me in the face and declared me worthless. "You're getting older, Mia," she continued. "You need stability. A real career. That community center nonsense isn't going to sustain you forever." My heart pounded. She had not altered. Not even a little. I took a deep breath and kept my voice calm. "Let me make something very clear to you, Mother. You are not my family. You stopped being my family the day you hit me and threw me out into the streets." Her stillness at the other end was deafening. I persisted, my voice resolute. "I used to dream about this moment. About you realizing you were wrong. But now I see that you haven't changed at all. And I don't need your approval anymore." I heard a sudden intake of breath. "Mia, be reasonable." "No. You are reasonable," I replied. "I am never coming back to you. I am never letting you have control over me again. You don't get to decide my future. I do. And I choose to live without you." Her voice became sharp. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." I grinned, but she couldn't see it. "I regret ever wanting your love in the first place." With that, I hung up. That was the moment I realized I was free. On the day of the community center's grand opening, I stood with Mary and Adam, admiring the space we had created together. A place for youngsters like us, who have been rejected, abandoned, or made to feel inadequate. Adam strummed his guitar with a slight smile on his face. "Mom and Dad would hate this," he reflected. I laughed. "Good." Mary wrapped her arms around both of us. "You two have done something incredible. I hope you know that." I gazed around at the children passing through the doors, kids who would never have to feel as alone as we did. I didn't need my parents' love. I did not need their approval. I had something better. A family selected me. A life I created on my own terms. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My brother drove recklessly, often drunk, crashed into a tree, and our parents covered it up, then demanded I pay $14,500. Hey Reddit, so my parents got my golden child brother a Tesla and then attempted to blame me after he crashed it. Buckle up, because this is going to be the most shocking family betrayal story you've read all week. So, since I was a child, I, 24 male, have had the worst luck in my family. My parents see my younger brother, Tristan, 21 male, as the golden child, capable of doing no wrong. The partiality in our household is so evident that it would make a sitcom writer blush. I'm not even exaggerating. This is straight up everybody loves Raymond material. Let me break it down for you. Since I turned 18, I've been required to pay a $400 monthly rent to live at home. Yes, you read that correctly. $400 to live in the same house where I grew up, in a bedroom that hasn't been changed since I was 12. Meanwhile, my brother lives fully rent-free, eating food I help pay for, using utilities I help cover, and overall acting as if he owns the entire home. When I finally had the courage to call out this obvious BS, my parents attacked me with the typical nonsense that parents employ when they realize they don't have a true explanation. The double standards do not end there. When I was in high school, I had to keep a 3.8 GPA while working weekends at a nearby hardware store. I was not permitted to attend parties since I needed to focus on my future. Tristan? This guy barely completed his classes, never worked during high school, and was permitted to party every weekend since he's just being social and needs to enjoy his youth. Every accomplishment of mine received a half-hearted compliment, whereas Tristan was commended for putting forth the bare minimum effort. I labored more than 40 hours each week at my soul-crushing corporate job only to save enough money to leave this hellhole. My objective has been to save enough for a quality apartment and the first and last month's rent, but every time I get near, some inexplicable family emergency arises. And guess who is supposed to help out? I graduated from college 3 years ago. I worked part-time while taking a full course load, graduated with honors, and found a job within 2 weeks of graduation. What is my reward for this achievement? A half-hearted congratulations text with a $50 Applebee's gift card. There is no party, celebration supper, or anything. Simply put, here's some mediocre chain restaurant cuisine, now keep paying your rent. Tristan finished this month with a strong 2.4 GPA following 6 years of what I guess was professional beer pong training. This guy changed his major 3 times, failed many classes that he had to repeat, and essentially treated college as an extended vacation with occasional paper writing assignments. And how did my folks celebrate his lousy achievement? They purchased him a Tesla Model 3 Performance. Not the standard model, but the $60,000 plus option with all the bells and whistles. Premium sound system, the works. I still recall the day they handed it to him. We were all gathered in the driveway, when my father handed Tristan this small box. Inside are the keys to the dazzling white Tesla sitting across the street. Tristan starts freaking out and dancing around like he's won the lotto, while my mother shoots around 500 photos for Facebook. My father looks at me, notices my expression, and says, "Don't be jealous. Your brother deserves this after working so hard." What exactly are you working hard at? Beer pong championships? When I mentioned that I graduated with honors in 4 years despite working and earning nothing, my mother had the gall to comment, "Well, college was easier for you. Tristan really struggled. He struggled to get out of bed before noon and remember who he was dating that week." I could go on for hours on the obvious partiality, but you get the point. My entire life, I've been treated as a second-class person within my own family. Tristan's entire personality was transformed the moment he received the Tesla. I am not even kidding. Dude couldn't go 5 minutes without discussing his whip or sharing Instagram stories from the dashboard. The car was no longer merely a mode of mobility for him. It had become his entire personality. Tesla Bro was born, and it was as annoying as it sounds. Every night, he would arrive home at 2 a.m., from whatever bar he was at and rev the engine in the driveway like a true tool. Yes, I understand that Teslas do not have engines to rev, but this dip would floor the acceleration back and forth in our driveway, producing that electric whirring noise at full blast. He'd wake up the entire neighborhood since, obviously, sleep is reserved for peasants who don't own the electric automobiles that Daddy purchased. The youngster drove like he was auditioning for Fast and Furious 27. Electric Baloo, driving down residential streets where children play, performing donuts in grocery store parking lots, and recording those TikTok videos where people pretend to sleep while their Tesla is on autopilot. Every time I suggested that treating public highways like his personal racetrack wasn't the best idea, he'd smirk and tell me to quit being such a buzzkill, bro. I even saw him drive intoxicated several times. This wasn't just being a douche, it was actively hazardous to those around him. I offered to be his designated driver several times or to call him an Uber, but he declined. The automobile basically drives itself, bro. Except that autopilot does not magically eliminate the effects of drinking on your judgment and reaction time. His friends fared no better. They would pack into the Tesla, usually 4 or 5 of them, all equally wasted, and go on a joyride. Their words, not mine. I warned them all several times that something horrible was about to happen. I also warned my parents. Everyone urged me to mind my own business. My mother genuinely said, and I'm quoting exactly here, "You're just jealous you don't have friends who want to have fun with you." Yes, Mom, I'm quite envious since I don't have buddies who wish to die in a catastrophic crash or kill innocent people. You caught me. With each passing day, Tristan became more reckless. The videos become more dangerous. The speeds increased. It wasn't a matter of whether something would happen, but when. Everyone, except me, appeared utterly unaware of what was about to happen. But then the inevitable occurred. On a Thursday night, I was in my room working when I heard my parents' door bang open at 3 a.m. There was frenzied talking in the hallway, followed by my father's car starting and rushing away. I found my mother downstairs, looking as if she had seen a ghost. When I asked what was going on, she murmured something about, "Your brother had a little accident with the Tesla, and that my father had gone to pick him up. A minor collision." That's family code for a catastrophic blunder that they're already plotting how to avoid. Around 4:30 a.m., I heard my father's car arrive into our driveway. I went to the front window and saw him almost pulling Tristan along the walkway. He could barely walk, was missing a shoe, and had what seemed to be dried blood on his forehead. My father was desperately shushing Tristan as he slurred, "Tree came out of nowhere, man." It turns out that golden boy wrapped his Tesla around a tree after leaving a bar. Isn't that shocking? Who could have expected this absolutely unpredictable incident, which I had been warning everyone about for weeks? By some miracle, he was not gravely injured, only a gash on his forehead and possibly some bruises from the airbag. However, the Tesla was nearly destroyed. Front end was smashed in. Airbags were deployed. The windshield cracked. The whole 9 yards. They escorted him to his room as if he were a baby who had stayed up past bedtime rather than a grown-ass man who had just committed a crime. I didn't get the complete story until the following morning. Tristan had been to the Rusty Nail. He got completely inebriated with his equally intelligent companions and then concluded that driving was an excellent idea. His friends, these stand-up citizens, appear to have encouraged this scheme, with one even video Tristan doing shots and then twirling his Tesla key, saying, "Let's see what this baby can really do." On his way home, he turned an extremely fast corner, lost control, jumped the curb, and plowed into a large oak tree owned by a poor homeowner. My father arrived ahead of the police. According to my mother's whispered phone call to my aunt, which I completely overheard, my father handled the situation with the homeowners. I have no idea what he promised them, but knowing my father, it was not cheap. He probably wrote them a check right away and forgot about it. The true mystery was how he persuaded them not to report the incident to the police. They had the Tesla towed to our garage, where it sat like a massive metal middle finger. The front end had entirely caved in. The hood collapsed like an accordion. Both airbags had deployed, leaving a strange powder residue across the interior. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks, and one of the front wheels was deformed at an angle that was clearly not factory standard. It was now a $60,000 paperweight. The garage door remained closed. 2 days after the accident, my parents arranged a family meeting in the living room. Throughout the history of family meetings, no one has ever been called to deliver good news. Nobody ever calls a family meeting and says, "Hey, we're all going to Disney World." So, I entered the living room. My parents were seated on the couch, making those serious faces you see when someone is ready to beg for a favor. Tristan slouched in the armchair, swiping through his phone as if the entire situation was a little inconvenience, diverting his attention away from his crucial TikTok perusing. The bruise on his face had turned a gorgeous shade of yellow-purple, which actually complemented his attractiveness. My father cleared his throat and looked at me with that fake serious expression he has when he's going to say something absolutely absurd but wants to appear logical and fair. He has a routine that includes straightening his back, clearing his throat, and clasping his hands together. It's like watching a nervous actress practice for a scene. "Son," he called out. "We've looked into the damage to Tristan's car." He said it as if Tesla had acquired a cold. "The insurance won't cover it because..." He trailed off, visibly uneasy. "Because he was driving drunk," I concluded for him. My mother gave me a look that could curdle milk. "Don't be dramatic. He'd only had a few drinks." Right. After a few beers, he was unable to walk straight or construct intelligible sentences when he returned home. In my mother's world, anything less than being completely unconscious is considered a couple beers. My father continued as if I had not spoken. "The point is, repairs are going to cost around $18,000, and we think it's only fair that we all chip in as a family." I actually laughed aloud, believing it was a joke. I then knew they were serious. They had the audacity, the ultimate brass balls, to ask me to assist pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he chose to drive drunk and smash it. I couldn't believe what I heard. "You want me to help pay for repairs on a car that I don't own, don't drive, and was damaged because he decided to drive drunk?" I asked again, just to be sure I wasn't having a stroke and hallucinating this conversation. "We're a family," my mother remarked, as if that clarified everything. "And you're the only one with significant savings right now." Ah. There it was. They knew I had been saving to move out, and they saw it as a handy way to compensate for their golden child's error. My savings were not for my future. It was simply an emergency fund for Christ's fuck-it-ups. I get it. "How much are you expecting me to chip in?" I said, using air quotes around chip in because we all knew that meant pay for the most of it. My father had the decency to appear slightly uncomfortable. "Well, your mother and I can put in about $3,000 from our emergency fund. Tristan has about $500 saved up." LOL. Of course, Tristan only had $500 to his name, despite never having paid rent or expenses. That money was undoubtedly set aside for marijuana and whatever pricey streetwear brand he was into that month. So you want me to pay the other $14,500? I completed for him. It was not a question. My dad nodded, happy that I understood. We'll figure out a payment plan. Maybe $1,000 a month until it's paid off. We know you've been saving up. Tristan finally looked up from his phone and added, it's not like you need a fancy apartment anyway. You're always working. The chutzpah of this child could power a small city. He smashes his Tesla, the one I cautioned him not to drive drunk in, and then gives me financial advice on how I should spend my hard-earned money. I got money by working 2 jobs and paying rent to my own parents. That was when I lost it. I laughed again, but not in a good way. It was the kind of chuckle you have when something is so ridiculous that you can't be furious about it anymore. I'm not giving you a single cent for this, I stated, looking each of them in the eyes. Tristan crashed the car because he was driving drunk, and he should be grateful he's not sharing a cell with some guy named Bubba right now. This is his problem, not mine. My parents looked at me as if I had suggested sacrificing the family dog. After everything we've done for you, my mother began, her voice shaking in that manipulative tone she'd honed over the years. The Guilt Trip Express was departing the station. What have you done for me exactly? I was wondering. Made me pay rent while he lives free? Given him a Tesla while I drive a car that's older than his driver's license? Constantly dismissed my accomplishments while celebrating his mediocrity. Please, elaborate on all you've done for me that justifies me paying for his drunk driving accident. My father's face got that distinct shade of red that only comes when someone questions his authority. You will contribute to fixing your brother's car. End of discussion. I stood up, surprised at how peaceful I felt. No, I won't. End of my discussion. The expressions on their faces were priceless. They were so used to me giving in, to being the responsible one who makes sacrifices for the family, that they couldn't accept this new version of me who wasn't going to give up. You're being selfish, my mother said, pulling out the final weapon from her arsenal. No, I'm being realistic, I explained. Tristan chose to drive drunk. He chose to crash the car. That means he can deal with the consequences for once in his life. I walked out of the living room and back to my room, rejecting their request to return and discuss this like adults. The irony of their sudden desire for an adult talk was not lost on me. As I closed my bedroom door, I heard Tristan say, so does this mean I'm not getting the car fixed? That kid is always focused on his goals. I had no idea what they would do next, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over. In my family, no is not considered a complete response. It's simply an opportunity to find more innovative ways to achieve what they desire. My parents scarcely spoke to me for the following few days, only asking whether I had reconsidered their gracious offer to let me pay for Tristan's error. I kept my responses short and to the point. No. This resulted in a lot of heavy sighs, slammed doors, and my mother engaging in passive-aggressive behavior by talking about me in the third person when I'm literally in the same room. Some people just don't understand family loyalty, she would say to no one in particular as I ate breakfast 3 feet away from her. You're really subtle, Mom. I saw them whispering a couple times while hunched around the kitchen table, papers strewn out. When I walked in, they would quiet down. This was never a positive indicator in my family. When people stop talking when you walk into a room, you can bet your ass they're talking about you, and not in a way that suggests they're arranging his surprise party. Friday night, I arrived home from work to find my father on the phone with an insurance company representative. He was speaking in his professional voice, which he uses to persuade others that he isn't a liar. I heard language like complete coverage and vandalism claims before he noticed me and took the call into his office. Vandalism claim? That was new. Drunk driving into a tree is not considered vandalism, unless the tree filed charges. I assumed they were grasping at straws, hoping to find some way to get the insurer to pay. Good luck with it. Insurance firms hire entire departments whose sole responsibility is to find reasons not to pay claims. But, whatever. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Saturday morning, setup. Saturday morning began with a boom, literally. I was jerked awake at 7 a.m. It sounded like someone was bashing the crap out of a metal trash can. I stumbled out of bed and looked out my window, which overlooked our driveway, but I saw nothing strange. The noise had stopped. I assumed it was just the garbage collectors being overly aggressive and went back to bed. Approximately 1 hour later, all hell broke loose. I awoke to shouts from the garage. I put on some sweatpants and headed downstairs to see Tristan standing in the open garage, my parents behind him. All three were staring at the Tesla. The car was significantly more damaged than before. And I don't mean a bit more damaged, It appeared that the Hulk had a particular vendetta against it. The windshield had entirely smashed. All of the windows were broken. There were significant damages in the doors and hood. The side mirrors were dangling from cables. One of the headlights had just disappeared. Everything was almost impressive how completely ruined everything was. What the hell happened? I questioned, completely perplexed. Sure, the automobile was messed up from the incident, but this was on another level. Tristan whirled around, his face flushed with apparent wrath. Like you don't know? You did this? I actually laughed. I was asleep all night. I didn't touch your car. My father held up something, a baseball bat. My baseball bat. From my high school days. The one I kept in my closet as a reminder of when I played. Then why was this in the bushes outside? My father inquired, his voice doing that phony calm thing that indicates he's actually quite upset. I responded I had no idea, but my mother cut me off. Don't lie to us. It was my bat, which I had possessed for years. But I hadn't touched it for months. It sat in the back of my closet, alongside other high school sports gear I never utilized. We've already called the insurance company, my father said smugly. They're sending an investigator on Monday. We told them someone vandalized the car out of jealousy. That's when something clicked. Tristan must have stolen my bat and further damaged his already damaged Tesla. He then placed the bat to frame me. The insurance wouldn't cover the drunk driving accident. What about vandalism? This might be covered. Bonus points for exacting retribution on Big Bro, who refused to pay for his error. Now it made sense. I looked at Tristan and noticed the small smile he was trying so hard to disguise. This wasn't simply him being a spoiled brat. This was true malice. He purposely set me up. And my parents were in on it. You're seriously going to frame me for this? I questioned, gazing directly at Tristan. He smirked. Who do you think they'll believe? He was asking. The straight-A student with a bright future or the jealous older brother who still lives at home and complains about everything? My parents stood behind him, their arms crossed. A united front, against me. They had already chosen their side, as they always did. It didn't matter that they were committing insurance fraud, which is a criminal. It didn't matter that they were willing to blame me for something I hadn't done. All that mattered was to preserve their golden child. This is bullshit, and you know it, I remarked, surprisingly cool given the situation. I didn't touch the car. I was asleep all night. My mother scoffed. We heard you leave your room around 2 a.m. The neighbor's security camera probably caught you too. That was intriguing. We didn't have any neighbors with security cameras, at least not ones that could capture our driveway or garage. They were lying. That meant they knew exactly what had transpired. Because they helped plan it. Or, at the absolute least, they knew Tristan had done it and were covering for him. So let me get this straight, I responded, crossing my arms. You want me to either pay $14,500 for repairs to a car I don't own, or you'll frame me for vandalizing it to commit insurance fraud? Those are my options? My father's face reddened. Nobody's framing anyone. We know you did this because you're angry about the money. I returned to my room without saying another thing. There was no point in arguing with them. They had already determined their interpretation of reality. I closed the door, sat on my bed, and tried to think. This quickly went from ordinary familial bias to outright criminal activity. I grabbed my phone and called my supervisor, requesting an emergency day off for Monday. I was not going to leave my defense in the hands of my family when the insurance investigator showed there. I needed to be there to explain my side of the story. As I hung up, I realized something that made my stomach sink. My parents had just shown me how far they would go to protect Tristan. They would frame their son. They would lie to the authorities. Which made me wonder, what had they covered up for him in the past that I had no idea about? Monday. The insurance investigator arrives. The insurance investigator arrived on Monday morning at precisely 9 a.m. His name was Mac. I've seen this sort before. He had a wrinkled button-down tucked into khakis and was carrying a tablet and a camera. My father tried to convince me to go to work and they would handle everything, but I just stared at him until he gave up. It's funny how quickly his power dissolved when I didn't immediately roll over. My parents did their best June and Ward Cleaver impressions when Mac came. Tristan slouched nearby, appearing victimized, and periodically caressing the mark on his face for dramatic effect. Mac was courteous, but all business. He walked immediately to the garage to study the Tesla, snapping dozens of shots from all angles. He spent a long time comparing the front-end damage to the new damage, which made me think he would realize the obvious. This automobile had been involved in two quite distinct accidents. After inspecting the vehicle, Mac requested to meet with each of us individually. My parents went first, together. They stayed there for around 30 minutes. Then Tristan walked in for his interview, which lasted approximately 15 minutes. I heard him raise his voice at one point, most likely for dramatic effect. When it was my turn, I sat across from Mac at our kitchen table, where he had already set up his laptop and some documents. He glanced at me and said he had some concerns concerning where I was on Friday night and early Saturday morning. I told him the truth. I was sleeping in my bed at home. I got home from work at 6 p.m., cooked a sandwich, played Xbox, and went to bed around 11 p.m. I didn't leave my room until I heard a disturbance in the garage the following morning. Mac nodded, taking notes. Then he asked me directly if I was responsible for the Tesla's damage. No, I replied, staring him directly in the eye. And here's what you need to know that they probably didn't tell you. That car was already significantly damaged before this so-called vandalism happened. He raised his eyebrows, displaying the most passion he'd shown thus far. I described everything. Tristan received the Tesla as a gift after his lackluster graduation. He had been driving dangerously since he received it. I told Mac about the drunken driving, speeding, and TikTok videos. Then I came to the crash. How Tristan had wrapped it around a tree while driving drunk about a week before, and how my parents had managed to evade arrest. Check the airbags, I informed him. They've already been deployed from the first crash. Take a look at the front-end damage and the new damage. They are plainly different. The front-end damage is the result of an impact with a tree. The rest is not from me. I also informed him about my parents' attempt to get me to pay $14,500 for repairs, and how the vandalism occurred unexpectedly shortly after I declined. Mac wrote everything down without much reaction. Then he questioned whether anyone could confirm that I was in my room all night. No, I explained. I live with my parents and Tristan. However, I did order a pizza around 9:30 p.m. On Friday, I spent approximately 11 hours playing Xbox Live with pals. They can certify that I was online. He nodded and took additional notes. Then he startled me by asking if any of my neighbors had security cameras. Not that would cover our garage or driveway, I replied. The Johnsons across the street have a doorbell camera, but it only sees their porch. He wrote something down, thanked me, and promised to contact the family soon. As we walked back into the living room, I could feel my parents and Tristan staring at me. They realized I hadn't followed their script. After Mac left, all hell broke loose. After Mac left, all hell broke loose. My folks have lost their collective brains. How dare I reveal the truth to the investigator? The horror. My mother cried because I was attempting to ruin Tristan's life over a single mistake, as if drunk driving and insurance fraud were on par with forgetting to take out the garbage. My father got in my face, pointing his finger, and told me I should call the investigator back and rectify this if I knew what was best for me. Tristan just smirked from the couch, knowing that his plan would succeed. Because it always has. The golden child always wins, right? I returned to my room and locked the door, disregarding their request to return downstairs. For the next 2 days, I went to work, returned home, went directly to my room, and closed the door. I ordered delivery meals and only came out once I realized they were asleep. It was like living in a hostile foreign country where I didn't understand the language and everyone despised me. Wednesday. A text from Mac. On Wednesday afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. This is Mac with State Farm Insurance. Please meet me on Main Street at 4 p.m. today. I have a few follow-up questions. I replied back to say I'd be there. I did not notify my family where I was going. I left work and headed straight to Starbucks. Mac was already present, seated at a corner table with his laptop and stack of papers. He motioned me to sit down. I wanted to talk to you away from your family, he continued with a low voice. We've uncovered some inconsistencies in the claim. Mac turned out to be more thorough than my family had anticipated. He'd scoured the neighborhood for security footage, and discovered anything. Last month, the neighbors 2 doors down installed a new security system featuring a wide-angle camera that covered the majority of the street. And guess what it caught? At 2:13 a.m. on Saturday morning, Tristan took my baseball bat from my car's trunk, where I kept sports equipment, and drove off in his already damaged Tesla. The video saw him carefully breaking every window, denting the hood and doors, and even pulling off one of the side mirrors. Max slid his tablet across the table, showing me the footage. There was my brother. At 2 a.m., staging the entire thing. It was so apparent and humorous. I've been doing this job for 15 years, Mac blurted out. And this is one of the dumbest frame jobs I've ever seen. He then informed me that he had previously reported the facts to his superiors at the insurance firm. They denied the claim and referred the case to their fraud department. He had also contacted the local police, who wanted to talk with both me and Tristan. The police officer will be here in about 10 minutes, Mac continued. And I wanted to let you know before they contact your family. Given the circumstances, I thought you might like to speak with them separately. I really thanked him for his thoroughness and belief in me. The police get involved. A police officer arrived. She was a woman. She took my statement, showed me the footage again, and asked if I wanted to file charges against Tristan for attempting to frame me. The DA will decide whether to pursue the insurance fraud charges, she replied. But for the false reporting and the attempt to frame you, that's your call. I sat there, contemplating. Yes, Tristan is my brother, flesh and blood. But he was also the one who purposefully attempted to frame me for a crime I did not commit. The person who would have gladly let me take the blame for his drunk driving and subsequent tantrum, potentially destroying my record, employment prospects, and life. I considered all the years of favoring. All those double standards. All the times I was made to feel inferior because I was not Tristan. I reflected on how they were willing to let me take the blame for insurance fraud to protect him. And then I realized how tired I was of it all. Yes, I informed the police. I want to press charges. Without hesitation. Only a simple yes. She nodded, took some notes, and invited me to the station later to provide a formal statement. We decided on 6 p.m. that evening. Coming home to chaos. I drove home, getting into our driveway around 5 p.m. to grab a few items before heading to the police station. To my amazement, a police cruiser was already parked in front. Officer Rivera seems to have made good use of his time. Walking into my residence at that time was like walking into a battle zone. My mother was pacing and crying in the living room. Dad was on the phone with someone, hurriedly discussing misunderstandings and family issues. Tristan sat on the couch, looking pallid. He usually had a perpetual smug grin, like the cat who ate the canary and successfully blamed it on the dog. When my mother noticed me, she ran over. What did you do? The cops were just here. They think Tristan might be charged with fraud. I did not do anything. Tristan committed this to himself when he decided to blame me for vandalizing his car. My father hung off the phone and stormed over. This is ridiculous. We can deal with this as a family. You should contact them back right now and tell them you don't want to press charges. No, I simply replied. I'm done covering for him. I'm done being the fall guy. None of you can make me drop the charges right now. The aftermath? A full-fledged meltdown. The fallout was exactly what you would expect. My mother alternated between sobbing and attempting to guilt me into withdrawing the allegations. My father alternated between frightening me and providing money. Suddenly, he could assist me with the rent for a new apartment, if I only made this disappear. Tristan tried to apologize, but it came off as sorry I got caught, rather than sorry I'm a scheming asshole. At 5:45, I walked upstairs. I knew I didn't want to return to this place after delivering my statement, so I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, and some critical documents. When I returned downstairs with my bag, my folks looked frightened. Where do you think you are going? My father demanded. I'm going to the police station to provide a statement. And then I'll stay with a pal for a time. My mother started wailing loudly. You cannot leave. We need to deal with this as a family. We stopped being a functional family a long time ago, I responded. Maybe we never were. My father moved in front of the door, barring my exit. If you step out that door and do this, don't bother coming back. You will no longer be welcome in this home. If you do this to your brother, you are choosing to destroy this family. I stared him directly in the eyes. No, father, I am not destroying the family. I refuse to let the family destroy me anymore. And if you are truly willing to abandon me because I did not allow it to happen, I am fine with it. I stepped around him and exited the door. He called after me, something about ungrateful children and family loyalty, but I didn't turn back. I got into my car and proceeded to the police station. The formal statement giving my formal declaration took around 1 hour. The officer outlined what would come next. Tristan would be charged with filing a fraudulent police report, attempting insurance fraud, and possibly other offenses relating to the original DUI crash, which had never been properly recorded. This can become messy, she cautioned me. Family cases frequently do. Are you certain you want to proceed? I nodded. I'm sure. When I left the police station, I received a text from my pal Chris. Have your room ready. I ordered food. Don't be late, brother. I had called him earlier to inquire if I could stay at his apartment for a few days. And being the reliable friend he is, he did not even ask questions. As I drove to Chris's apartment, my phone flooded with texts and phone calls from my relatives. I turned off my phone and continued driving. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt as if I was actually standing up for myself. Chris was waiting on his porch as I pulled up, holding 2 sodas. He didn't immediately ask for more information. He simply assisted me with my stuff and said, "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." And in that moment, I discovered something significant. This was how real families were meant to feel. Not obligated, not manipulation, not a perpetual competition. Only unconditional support. The kind I had never seen at home. Edit 1. Holy crap, this exploded up overnight. Thank you for the accolades and support, Reddit. It means a lot. Edit 2. Stay tuned for an update, which will be available soon. LOL, that rhymed. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my previous post, and many of you have DM'd me asking for an update on the Tesla bro problem. So, here goes. I left my parents' place 6 months ago with a duffel bag and a newfound backbone. Best decision I've ever made. I crashed with Chris for a few weeks before finding my own house. Nothing spectacular, just a 1-bedroom apartment where no one begs me to solve their problems. Tristan's case progressed fast. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, blood alcohol levels from the hospital the night of the incident, which my parents attempted to conceal, and an insurance inquiry report. He ended up pleading guilty to all charges and received 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, a huge fine. He lost his license for 5 years. My parents were not charged, but they did face significant fines for their involvement in the insurance scam. They're essentially broke after paying legal expenses, fines, and the remaining payments on a totaled Tesla. As for me, I received a promotion at work. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not always dealing with family issues. In addition, I'm taking night school to pursue an MBA. Life is currently fairly good. The update you've been waiting for: text messages and phone calls resumed last month. First, from my mother. Then my father. Finally, Tristan used his jail-approved phone time. They all had the same message, only delivered in various ways. They need money. Mom took the standard guilt tactic. We're about to lose our house. After everything we've done for you, how can you abandon us now? Dad attempted his typical intimidation. You owe this family. Man up and help us out. Tristan apologized and stated that his time in jail has changed his perspective. Before requesting for commissary funds. Do you know what was very funny? Last week, my folks arrived at my apartment. Unannounced. I have no idea how they got my address, probably through a mutual family connection. They were standing outside my door, looking really pitiful. Both of them had a frantic face. They had an entire pitch planned. They were selling the house but needed funds to move. The bank accounts were frozen. Dad lost his job following the controversy. Mom's anxiousness was flaring up. Couldn't I please assist my family in their time of need? I listened to everything without interrupting. I saw them spin their sob story with a dramatic performance. When they were finished, I just gazed at them for about 10 seconds before asking, "Sorry, I must have missed something during your brief presentation. Could you please remind me which part of attempting to frame me entitled you to my financial assistance?" Mom's face collapsed, like if she had been smacked. Dad stood there, speechless. For the first time in their lives, they had no script ready. The roles were flipped, and they had no idea how to play someone who were out of control. But they weren't in their house, where they set the rules. They were at my door. And I had all the cards. I said I'd think about it and close the door. I thought about it. For around 5 seconds. Then I sent this text. The answer is no. Do not contact me again. Dad responded with threats. Mom uses emotional manipulation. Tristan made pledges to change. I blocked all of their numbers. Some people may believe that is harsh. Perhaps it is. But after 24 years being the scapegoat, I'm finally putting myself first. They're adults who've made their decisions. Just as I am making mine right now. So that's all for now, Redditors. Thank you for sticking around during this whole mess. You guys are the finest. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. So, guys, peace out for now. Edit 1. For those thinking of bringing charges against my parents. The DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to indicate they were aware of Tristan's plan beforehand. Personally, I believe they knew. But, whatever. The financial ramifications they are currently facing are most likely harsher than what the courts would have done anyhow. Edit 2. To the few people who messaged me stating, "But they're still your family." Oh, come on. Being connected by blood does not give somebody the authority to frame you for a felony. That is not how family works. That's how prison gangs operate. LOL, that rhymed. Update. Hey Reddit, It's been a while since my previous post, and many of you have DM'd me asking for an update on the Tesla bro problem. So, here goes. I left my parents' place 6 months ago with a duffel bag and a newfound backbone. Best decision I've ever made. I crashed with Chris for a few weeks before finding my own house. Nothing spectacular, just a one-bedroom apartment where no one begs me to solve their problems. Tristan's case progressed fast. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, blood alcohol levels from the hospital the night of the incident, which my parents attempted to conceal, and an insurance inquiry report. He ended up pleading guilty to all charges and received 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, a huge fine. He lost his license for 5 years. My parents were not charged, but they did face significant fines for their involvement in the insurance scam. They're essentially broke after paying legal expenses, fines, and the remaining payments on a totaled Tesla. As for me, I received a promotion at work. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not always dealing with family issues. In addition, I'm taking night school to pursue an MBA. Life is currently fairly good. The update you've been waiting for: text messages and phone calls resumed last month. First, from my mother. Then my father. Finally, Tristan used his jail-approved phone time. They all had the same message, only delivered in various ways. They need money. Mom took the standard guilt tactic. We're about to lose our house. After everything we've done for you, how can you abandon us now? Dad attempted his typical intimidation. You owe this family. Man up and help us out. Tristan apologized and stated that his time in jail has changed his perspective. Before requesting for commissary funds. Do you know what was very funny? Last week, my folks arrived at my apartment. Unannounced. I have no idea how they got my address, probably through a mutual family connection. They were standing outside my door, looking really pitiful. Both of them had a frantic face. They had an entire pitch planned. They were selling the house but needed funds to move. The bank accounts were frozen. Dad lost his job following the controversy. Mom's anxiousness was flaring up. Couldn't I please assist my family in their time of need? I listened to everything without interrupting. I saw them spin their sob story with a dramatic performance. When they were finished, I just gazed at them for about 10 seconds before asking, "Sorry, I must have missed something during your brief presentation. Could you please remind me which part of attempting to frame me entitled you to my financial assistance?" Mom's face collapsed, like if she had been smacked. Dad stood there, speechless. For the first time in their lives, they had no script ready. The roles were flipped, and they had no idea how to play someone who were out of control. But they weren't in their house, where they set the rules. They were at my door. And I had all the cards. I said I'd think about it and closed the door. I thought about it. For around 5 seconds. Then I sent this text. The answer is no. Do not contact me again. Dad responded with threats. Mom uses emotional manipulation. Tristan made pledges to change. I blocked all of their numbers. Some people may believe that is harsh. Perhaps it is. But after 24 years being the scapegoat, I'm finally putting myself first. They're adults who've made their decisions. Just as I am making mine right now. So that's all for now, Redditors. Thank you for sticking around during this whole mess. You guys are the finest. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. So, guys, peace out for now. Edit 1. For those thinking of bringing charges against my parents. The DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to indicate they were aware of Tristan's plan beforehand. Personally, I believe they knew. But, whatever. The financial ramifications they are currently facing are most likely harsher than what the courts would have done anyhow. Edit 2. To the few people who messaged me stating, "But they're still your family." Oh, come on. Being connected by blood does not give somebody the authority to frame you for a felony. That is not how family works. That's how prison gangs operate.